The Library's Surgeon General Vivek Murthy issued a warning on the risk.
Congress are once again calling on the White House to agree to spending cuts to help get a deal done to raise the debt ceiling. Here's House Majority Whip Tom Emmer of Minnesota speaking this morning.
To this day, we're the only ones that have provided a solution to avoid default. It's now up to the president to come to the table with some ideas so that we can make real strides to address this issue.
President Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy wrapped up their latest meeting yesterday, saying they were optimistic an agreement will be reached to avoid a default. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has repeatedly warned the federal government could default as early as June 1st without a hike in the debt limit. Police in Washington, D.C. say it was a 19-year-old man from Missouri who rammed a rental truck into security barricades at Lafayette Park last night across from the White House. Investigators say they believe the man did so purposely. He's facing multiple charges, including assault with a dangerous weapon. Police say nobody was injured. A new study finds U.S. military veterans have lower rates of support for violent extremist groups than non-veterans. NPR's Quill Lawrence says the results are from the Rand Corporation.
Despite many high-publicity cases of veterans involved in far-right violence, including the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, a national survey of about 1,000 veterans found those cases are outliers. Todd Helmus is with Rand.
In terms of support for extremist groups and also extremist ideologies, on the most part, they were lower than what we see in representative surveys of the general public.
That includes support for the far-right Proud Boys, for white supremacy, and on the left, lower support for the anti-fascist Antifa than the general public. Support among veterans for the idea of violence in politics was about the same as for non-veterans. Quill Lawrence, NPR News.
Officials in California are downplaying concerns about potential flooding from the state's historic mountain snowpack. Here's NPR's Nathan Rott.
An area roughly the size of New Orleans is already flooded in California's southern Central Valley after a series of epic winter storms earlier this year. And for months, the communities just outside that flooded area, tens of thousands of people, have worried that a melting snowpack means they're next. State water officials aim to alleviate those concerns, saying that weather conditions, strengthened levees, and efforts to divert water upstream should keep the towns from flooding. Snowmelt is expected to peak across much of the state in the coming weeks. Nathan Rott, NPR News.
This is NPR News.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A new report from the Anti-Defamation League shows growing levels of hate here in Massachusetts. GBH's Esteban Bustillos has the story.
Massachusetts faced the country's 6th highest rate of anti-Semitic harassment, vandalism, and assault in 2022, according to the report titled Hate in the Bay State. In 2022, there were 152 anti-Semitic incidents, a 41% increase over the previous year. There's also been a rise in anti-LGBTQ plus activity, which the ADL's Peggy Schuker calls concerning.
That spike is particularly troubling and really needs to be connected with the other types of hate and anti-Semitic incidents that we're seeing.
Massachusetts also had 474 instances last year of white supremacist propaganda being distributed, the second highest number in the country. In Boston, I'm Esteban Bustillos, GBH News 89.7.
Say what you will about Taylor Swift's mesmerizing performance at a rain-soaked Gillette Stadium on Saturday night. The event was attended by some 65,000 people, plus one. Why plus one? Well, because a woman at the show went into labor immediately following the last song. According to WPRI, a woman called 911 after she started having contractions, and that's when the Foxborough Fire Department came roaring in. They transported the woman to a nearby hospital, and at last report, mom and child are doing well. Talk about love story, and look what you made me do, and you belong to me. 57 degrees in Boston. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from HBO. Sydney Sweeney stars in the new HBO original film Reality, based on the story of Reality Winner, who went from working for the NSA to being interrogated by the FBI. Premieres Monday at 10 p.m. on Max.
I'm Henry Santoro, GBH News 89.7.
Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live as we do every Tuesday and every Friday from the Boston Public Library. And we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. Want to say something about Governor Healy?
You can say something. You're supposed to say, hello, Jim.
Hi,
How
Jim.
are you?
Hi, Jim. How are you?
And then you're supposed to say, by the way, Friday, we'll be back at the library with
Governor Healy for
Exactly.
an hour for Ask the Governor. That is from 1 to 2.
Nicely done, Marjorie.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to do one shout out before we start the show. I think everybody listening knows that this month is Asian American Pacific Islander Cultural Heritage Month, and GBH did an event last night. I think they've done it 17 years in a row to recognize the occasion, and they honored somebody that you and I both have
Yes.
great affection for with this year's AAPI Chinatown Gate Award. Helen Chin Schlichte is one of the most impressive people I have ever met in my life. We met her through her seat on the GBH board, but her influence in the larger community here, in politics in Massachusetts, in the foundation world, and just as an incredible human being is immense. And we wanted to add our voices because we couldn't be there last night celebrating the life and times of the great Helen Chin.
Well, I just wanted to say, too, we went to her birthday celebration.
Oh, her 90th birthday, right,
I
we
forget,
did.
someplace in Quincy.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of people in
I
the
know.
parking lot. And we went inside, and she was like, it was a receiving line. She
It
was
was.
receiving
It was great.
guests. There must have been 100 people in line to talk to her, to pay their respects, to thank her for all the work she's done. So it was a really impressive evening, and she is a hugely impressive woman.
Well, we love her and respect her, and congratulations on yet another honor for an incredible person. So today, Surgeon General Vivek Murthy issued a formal warning that social media among teens is driving a mental health crisis in this country. 95% of kids between 13 and 17 say they use at least one social media platform. 6 in 10 adolescent girls say they've been approached online by strangers. All the while, data shows rates of teenage depression and hopelessness are climbing dramatically, and many, like the Surgeon General, make the connection. We're opening the phone and text lines at 877-301-8970. Are you a parent who's taking steps to keep your kids off social media, or at least limiting their access to apps like Snapchat and TikTok, or have you just given up? If you read what Murthy had to say, he's calling on the industry to reform itself. But while we wait and hold our breath, the burden is on the parents, and we want to know at 877-301-8970, are you up to the job, or do you even think it's a problem, or are you in denial? 877-301-8970.
You know, there's such an irony here. You hear so many people, and we're going to hear this today, I'm sure, from parents who say, well, I needed, for safety reasons and emergency reasons, to get my child a cell phone when they're like 8 or 9 or 10. And you think, what could those emergencies be, except if you got abducted on the way to school, which is, thank God, very unlikely.
And the abductor is going to say, you can use your cell phone during the abduction.
Yeah, but the irony is that's the reason people give to
Yeah,
get it.
I know that.
And then we learn that what the cell phone is doing is causing tremendous harm to these kids. And everybody that I know that's got either kids or grandkids at this age struggles with this. What do you do with a kid that's on their phone all day long? And these statistics are really, particularly for girls, really bad. 1/3 say they use social media almost constantly. They talk about how kids don't get any sleep. You know why they don't get any sleep?
Phone's in bed with
They're taking
them.
the phone
I know that.
to bed with them, and they're on the phone till midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. 6 in 10 adolescent girls have been contacted by strangers. Did you just say that?
I did.
Yeah, which is
Still
really
true.
Which is really scaring. So the deal is it's causing terrible levels of anxiety and depression and the peer pressure, right? You are constantly comparing yourself to your own friends. You're being cyber-bullied by people that are not really your friends.
Some are, that's true.
And it just, you know, I was saying to you before we went on the air, in the olden days, Jim, which wasn't really that long ago, you were never supposed to leave you're supposed to have the computer, remember?
In the center of the living room.
House.
Right.
Yeah, when everybody got their
Boy, talk
computers
about-
and the, what was it, 1995 or 2000, when everybody had them in the middle, and you're never supposed to put a television in your kid's bedroom. And now they've got something that's a million times more troubling than the television, right in their hand, 6 inches from their face all night long.
So we've learned a lot about tech, Marjorie, through Andy Anatko and some others.
Yeah.
Do you feel if your kids, instead of being late 20s and early 30s, if they were teenagers, would you feel up to the job? Mine are in 29 and 31. I wouldn't feel.
Well, you know,
today.
you got to start very young. It's got to be like when they're 7. You know, these are the rules. We don't have TVs in your bedroom. We don't take cell phones to bed.
How many rules that you put in place for your kids did they honor?
Well, they weren't honoring any of them, but I
Exactly.
didn't know because they were doing it behind my back. But some things aren't that hard to monitor. You know, if you establish it early on, you're just not having your cell phone in bed with you.
Hand me your cell phone before you go to bed so that I know that you're telling me the truth and you don't have it?
Listen, if I knew this stuff now and I had little kids,
You do that.
absolutely.
Well, they're not little kids, by the way. The biggest
That's
issue
what
is
my point
13 to 17.
That's my point. You got to start when they're like 7 or 8, so you're not fighting with them every night when they're 13.
Do you know what they
trying to get the
do
cell
when you
phone
do
away from
that? They go buy a burner phone. That's what they do. 877-3. I'm looking at Jamie, who's got, how old's your kid? 2? 3. He's probably got 4 burner phones, this kid, from what we hear about. 877-301-8970. You know what's ironic about this? We'll get to your calls in a second. I hope they're creative, constructive suggestions. We talk a lot about members of Congress with huge staffs are not up to the task of dealing with big tech. The notion that parents are up to the task, despite what you just said, about dealing with small tech in their households is preposterous
the kids are
to me.
9 million miles ahead of you on the tech stuff.
Can I just say one thing? By the way,
What?
Vivek Murthy, if you read his piece, where was that piece today, James? In the Washington Post, the Surgeon General. You know, it ends with 4 or 5 paragraphs saying it can't just be on the parents, it's got to be on government and the industry. We don't want to talk about that today because it's not happening tomorrow. Until it happens, and if it happens, the burden is on family. And we want to know if families, parents, guardians, siblings are up to the task. Before we start, we should play a little sound. The woman who was really courageous, who sounded I think one of the first warning shots. Remember Frances Haugen?
Yes.
From Facebook, who was the whistleblower, former employee. She testified in front of the Senate in October of 2021. Here's just a snippet of what she had to say.
I'm here today because I believe Facebook's products harm children, stoke division, and weaken our democracy. The company's leadership knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safer, but won't make the necessary changes because they have put their astronomical profits before people. They won't solve this crisis without your help.
What are you laughing
I'm not
at?
laughing at Haugen. Jamie just sends me a note. He said, we had our first, remember, the kid's 3, right? 3, is that what the kid is? Okay, Jamie was the kid, I'm sorry. We had our first computer set up in the living room, just like Marjorie said. Take it out of the box, set it up with the family, dial up. Remember dial up, the internet? You hear that sound?
I love that
The
noise.
whole family's sitting around the computer. The first website that pops up, porn. 877. Why wouldn't it be? It's the most commonly visited website. 877-301-8970. Where do you want to go?
Well, we should just say one thing, that
What is
these
it?
stories all point out there are certainly positive uses for social media.
Obviously there are.
But we're not talking about that. I want to read this text really
Sure,
quickly.
sure.
I am a child therapist. The bulk of my work in the last 2 years has been focused on helping parents be gatekeepers for social media,
Wow.
which is very damaging to children and teens. I see the effects of it every single day. My advice: wait until 8th grade before you give your kids a phone. Safety issues are not a concern. They can find ways to call you and all that kind of stuff.
8th grade is
very
like 13 years old, right? It's 13 or something?
Yeah, and that's going to be really tough because by 13, everybody in the class except your kid will have a cell phone, so it's really difficult.
They'll be totally understanding about it, too.
Scott in South Boston. Thank you, Scott.
Hello, Scott. Welcome.
Hey, Jim and Marjorie.
Hi.
I am a parent of 2 little kids, and I think about this topic all the time because it scares me to death to think that they're going to grow up with a bunch of other kids that have smartphones in their hands, and they will just feel this draw to social media because it's addictive, and it's engineered to be addictive.
Of course it is. So what are you doing? How old are your kids, and what are you doing about it, Scott?
I have a 2-year-old and a 1-week-old.
Oh, congrats.
You got some time on your hands.
So what's the plan? Obviously, you're not worried about it. Well, you are worried about it, but you don't have to act on it right now. What's the plan for when they're higher single-digit ages, Scott?
Honestly, I think the important thing is that parents start taking an active role in educating their kids on what the internet is, how it works. And I think there's also an opportunity for the government to step in and start mandating some sort of course where kids are learning about social media, its dangers, misinformation, checking sources, knowing what you're seeing is real, knowing what's not real. That stuff is going to be super important, and I think everyone's sticking their heads in the sand in terms of policy to regulate these things.
Hey, Scott, good luck with the kids and congratulations on the newborn. We appreciate it. You know what I forgot? He said you got to teach your kid this, which is a separate subject, but a parallel subject, what's real and what's not. Did you see the photograph on TV last night
Of the
the
Pentagon,
explosion next to the
supposed-
Pentagon,
yeah.
which caused the stock market to
Yes,
go down?
uh-huh.
And the only problem was?
Wasn't real.
It wasn't real. And even though, and you know what the irony is? That what really was scary about that, following up on what Scott said, is that was a horrible deep fake, meaning the Pentagon didn't even look like the
anything like
Pentagon.
it,
It looked
no.
like my house.
But you
and
didn't-
people still reacted
you didn't
negatively
get that
to
far.
it.
You just looked at the smoke
Exactly.
coming up before you saw it was the Pentagon.
877-301-8970. So Scott's starting early, I guess. And, you know, by the way, and even though I said we weren't going to talk about it, he lays out a case. This is Murthy in the Washington Post. Manufacturers of physical products, he writes, from medications to car seats, toys to cars, are required to meet safety standards. So he makes a credible case about how comparable safety standards should exist in the social media world, but they don't yet. So, again, it's in your hands. 877. By the way, John Davidson is on with us later. John Davidson is walking up and down Boylston Street,
saw him.
playing on the sidewalk for people. He is really a piece of work. He's going to be with us in the noon hour, I should say. I can't read who's on the bottom line. Who is that? Who's next?
Yeah, it's covered. The name is covered.
John in Rhode Island,
Thank
welcome
you.
to the show. Hi, John.
Hey, how are you?
Excellent.
I've got 3 kids, 2 of them in their 20s, one of them's 18, and we didn't give them phones until they were 13. It was like a rite of passage when they went on some trip in 8th grade. But the problem is that no matter what kind of roadblocks you put up, they're going to figure out a way to go around them. I have a timer on the Wi-Fi right now, so at 1 o'clock at night, the router is turned off.
That's
Basically, has
brilliant.
no power. But the problem is...
Hold on for a
if they
second,
have
John.
phones-
John, 1 o'clock's
Yeah?
a little late, isn't it?
Well, whatever,
I
but
mean,
he
you
set
want-
a time at least.
Well, you know, my wife likes to watch, Netflix stuff, and she sort of laughs and complains that at 12:58 or 12:52 it goes off and she can't watch what she wants.
Okay.
But, you know, the problem is that if a kid has a cell phone, they can turn on the portable hotspot.
Oh, a
Right.
hotspot, that's
bypass
right.
Everything.
Right.
Or if they have a Windows device, they can change their MAC address so they can just bypass the roadblocks you might put up to stop them.
Hey, John,
a never-ending battle.
apart from turning off the Wi-Fi at 1 a.m., how did your kids, how much complaining did you have to listen to about them not getting phones till they were 13?
Yeah, they complained, but you know, they didn't need it. They knew they didn't need it.
Did you
And they-
start early, indoctrinate? That's probably a poor word, but indoctrinating them like Marjorie suggested, start talking to them about it when they were young, 7, 8, that
Oh
kind
yeah,
of thing?
but that doesn't matter because you're their parent and you're a moron.
Well, I mean,
Thank you.
You know, I'm trying to be realistic.
No,
here,
that's
but the
is
problem
real.
Is that if you're over 25 to like a 9 or 10-year-old, you're an idiot.
That's a
It doesn't
very
really
fine
matter.
point.
You're a fool. You have no idea what's going on.
that's right.
One of my kids laughed at me when I said Russian troll farms, like fill people's good comments up on Yelp and all these other things, and they said they had no idea what I was talking about because it was like a year old. You know, kids have a long-term memory of like 40 seconds thanks to TikTok and
So
other
do some
Yeah.
adults. Hey, John, that was a
Well,
great one. Thanks,
you know,
and thanks for the effort at least.
I think you just have to accept that children, especially in the teen years, think you are a moron. Just the way it goes, you know. You just have to. That's the way it goes. When they have babies, then they'll need you again to babysit. But until 12, until they have babies, you are a moron. Listen to this. I have a friend. Oh no, that's not the right one. We did take our kids' cell phones at night. It's basic parenting, says Jan in the car. But I had a neighbor who removed his daughter's bedroom door as a consequence for not following the rules, which may be a little dramatic. No privacy, no phone at night. Parenting is 24/7 and crucial to building decent people.
You know, my
decent
reaction
people.
to taking the phone away when I said it to you, would you do that, was, you can't do that. But I guess,
not?
of course you can do that. Yeah, right.
I mean, your kids aren't supposed to like you in these moments.
They're not?
No, I don't think
I
so.
thought you were their friend. Isn't that what?
No, you're not
Oh,
their
that was
friend,
the
Jim.
aughts.
You're supposed to say, well, Susie, if Jimmy would jump off the bridge,
Would you
jump off
the bridge?
Haven't you heard that line?
I think that was 1930 parents were doing
Still
that.
works, Jim. Still works.
Does. Mike in Andover, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, Jim and Marjorie. Sorry for the background noise.
It's okay.
Well, we have a 12 and a 9-year-old. What we did is we gave our 12-year-old a Gizmo watch. So she only gets 9 contacts and can call home. And we made her watch The Social Dilemma, which shows how the social media impacts teenagers.
Oh, well, that's a good idea.
Well, what impact did that have?
Our daughter was extremely nervous and understood why we weren't giving her a cell phone, even though her friends were getting it.
Because of the movie?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
And I assume some counseling from you, right? Or no?
Yes. We also explained what was going on and how algorithms try to exploit them, and other kids would do mean things, especially when they don't know them personally.
And it worked.
Yes, it did.
Well, that's
so
great.
far, so good.
I don't mean to be cynical. That's great. Great. Well done. Mike,
Now,
thanks for the call.
We have a lot of parents who are saying they turn off the router or they program the phone to turn off at certain times of day and say it has no internet. But as the previous caller said, you can just go to the hotspots,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I'd like to see you go turn off a router or a modem.
Well, it's not that hard. I know how to
Yeah.
do that, Jim.
Do you know where it is in your house?
Yes. You know what you do?
No, I don't.
You know how you turn off the router?
Yeah.
Unplug it. It's not that hard to do.
Jim, I'm going to be late today for our 9 o'clock meeting. Why, Marjorie? This is this morning. She calls me.
I forgot
I left my phone at home.
Okay, I forgot my phone. I do know how to
you're
turn
the
off.
person for the job.
I know how to turn off the router, Jim.
You do?
Yes, I do.
I don't think
I
so.
just told you. You unplug it. That's all
You
you have to
do?
do. Yes, I've had a million guys from GBH over since we had our home offices.
Exactly. You have.
And I've actually fixed the printer all by myself.
You turned it off and turned it on?
That's what I did, exactly.
Exactly.
Rachel from Clinton, thank you for calling.
Hi, Rachel. At least she's
Hi,
honest. What's up, Rachel?
I have hi. I have 2 little ones. I have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And my plan for them is that to have those discussions with them about the dangers of social media, but not until they're old enough to really be able to understand it. My 5-year-old is incredibly smart, and he is very good at disabling the parental controls that we set up on the Switch. And
It's really
he
a
even
problem.
knows how to look over our shoulder and then copy our movements with the numbers. He's very smart. That being said, is that he is not socially aware of his surroundings. He doesn't really pick up on social cues.
Yeah.
So that conversation for him going into a social media world is going to be very, very different for any other child who might be able to understand a movie like the previous caller. I think that that's a wonderful, wonderful idea to be able to really say, hey, it's not just me saying these dangers exist. There's a whole movie about it. My kid might not understand that. So that is my responsibility, to be able to have those conversations with him when he's old enough for it.
You know what's heartening about this? Even though you describe a difficult past for you, the fact you've obviously thought this through like big time, which is really heartening. And I hope you're not aberrational. I hope you're the typical parent. And if you are, that's a good sign. Rachel, good luck, and thank you very much for the call. We appreciate it. We got to take a break, Margaret.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of, well, not a lot, but several therapists that are just saying you got to just take the phones away at night, and that's it. And that.
Well, that was your idea too, as a non-therapist, correct?
That was my idea as a non-therapist.
How were you at discipline
I was
for your kids,
ridiculed.
by the way? Were you pretty good at that?
Well, I mean, what did you range? A bunch of free-range chickens over there? I mean, you kind of do have to do that, don't you?
Yeah, I didn't ask if you had to do it. I said, were you able to do it?
Here's what I did. I sat down all the rules,
Yeah.
and then they broke them all, Jim.
Exactly.
But here was the beauty of it.
What is it?
It was like just like me when I was a kid. I broke a lot of the rules too, but I was very careful about breaking the rules so I wouldn't be caught by my parents.
I know.
So that's why you got to do it.
She used to climb out the bedroom window.
That's right.
And she denies that. She's told me 100 times.
They
she
never,
did that
they never
to meet
knew
her,
I was, never knew I was
the
gone.
quarterback of the high school
That's
football
right. Never
team
knew
was
I
the
was
boyfriend.
gone.
Yeah.
We're
That's what
talking
you
about
say.
fraught relationships with social media in our own lives and the lives of our teenagers. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming on youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
I'm Marco Werman. The U.S. is not the only country that's created a debt ceiling. Denmark has one too, but theirs is really high.
You really have to do something stupid to hit the debt ceiling.
Something stupid? Not on Denmark's watch. How a debt ceiling keeps the Danish government running smoothly and efficiently. Next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
State. Learn more at southcountyri.com. And Watershed Informatics, providing scientists with bioinformatics solutions for multi-omics data analysis. To learn more or to schedule a demo of their platform, you can visit watershed.ai.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. Governor Healy's with us Friday for an hour from 1 to 2. And by the way, John Davidson is both here, one of the most charming people I've ever met, and going to play for us in the 12 o'clock hour. But if you can't wait, you just got to Boylston Street. He is playing on the street for anybody who goes by. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the Surgeon General's warning today about social media use among teens, driving a mental health crisis. We want to know what you're doing about it and if you feel capable of dealing with it, which apparently most of our callers so far and texters feel up to the job. 877-301-8970.
Now, we have people texting that know a lot more about computers than I do and say you can set the router up to turn off certain things, and if you're really good at that, I suppose you can do it. Most of us are not.
How many
very good
parents,
at
I
this.
was going to say, how many parents think you can do
Very
it?
few.
Okay.
Listen to this one, though. I have 15 and 18-year-old girls, and by the way, this is much worse for girls than boys. Social media causes jealousy among all the teens, tweens, and adults. Today, teens have found they gain way more attention from posting bad stuff, crying videos, people who've wronged them or hurt their feelings, etc., than posting the good stuff. As a result, drama is everywhere. Social media has launched my daughter into an eating disorder and my other into depression. And these are two of the things that they find in these studies are very common. This texter says, I would love to throw the phones in the trash. I'm trying to get the schools to ban them in schools because studies show grades go up, but all they do is put the job on someone else. They refuse to listen.
I know some schools. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, a lot of people are texting that say that their children need the phones to get in touch with them. And I always think, well, if there's an emergency with your child in school, the school's going to call you, right? If there's an active shooter, you're going to find out. And thank God that we haven't had those kind of situations.
And what are you going to do when you do find out?
Well, exactly. There's this idea that there have to be an instantaneous, someone will call you.
Also, you know what's helpful? And I have to say, I'm going to say it's helpful, but I'm not sure I would be able to do it. Think back over the past year and how many times a call from your kid or a text from your kid was one which couldn't wait till they got home at the end of the day. And the answer is almost never.
You talk about my parenting. You're always over there with your kids 5 minutes before the show starts.
Yeah.
They're calling you, Dad, can you do this?
Well, I
Dad,
have to
can you do that?"
transfer cash. And so to their accounts early in the morning.
I'm going on the air in a minute and a half. Can I call you back?
Vanessa, in one of my favorite places on earth, Truro, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Hey, Vanessa.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Excellent.
Thanks for having me today.
Thank you.
So I am a forger. I'm sorry, I'm hearing an echo. Is that?
We're good on this end. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm a former educator. I started developing and teaching media literacy curriculum in the city of Cambridge for the public schools, starting with fifth graders at all the schools and working with librarians to do so. And that was in 2005. And we're almost 20 years out from that. And I feel the schools still haven't done their due diligence. I know a lot of it falls on parents, but educators, actually, media literacy curriculum is embedded into the frameworks of the Massachusetts educational framework.
It is?
So it's mandated. It is, yeah. But I don't think it's always addressed. It's usually left up to the librarians to teach, which is appropriate. But, we're teaching information literacy, digital literacy, just anything that would involve students being able to navigate the landscape and understand the consequences and how it works. And most recently, I was teaching actually here on the Cape as a media educator, and my middle school students didn't even know what the cloud was. And
how's that even? No, that's hard to believe, actually. I mean, that's really. I'm
I think
not
most
doubting you,
8-year-olds
but
know what the cloud is, don't they?
So, what do you
Vanessa?
attribute that to?
I think they just pick up on a lot of the terminology that's thrown around, but they don't understand the process behind what they're dealing with, what they're engaging
Vanessa,
with.
can I ask you, you may not know that, well, maybe you do know this. Gym, we had this discussion a few years ago. I don't know if it's still the same. Some gym is required in the curriculum statewide, but there's no mandate as to how much time. So it's a mandate without an enforceable whatever. Is that, I'm guessing that's the same with media literacy, is it?
Yeah, I don't think there's a time on it. It sort of says, what topics need to be covered.
Vanessa,
thanks.
Thank you
We
for
appreciate
the call. Here's a text. My daughter didn't have a cell phone until she was 14. She told me she was getting bullied because she had a flip phone, and I caved. She caught up quickly and is now addicted to her phone, just like everybody else.
Well, by the way, of all the relentless things that kids, in my personal experience and next door neighbor experience and friend experience, the relentless demands around cell phones is right up there. I mean, it's not one of those things where if you deal with it one day, they forget about it for a week. My experience was a while ago, is it's pretty relentless cause.
People are talking about giving their kids cell phones when they're like 7 or 8 because of all these emergencies.
Well, also, you now gamble online, so you got to be able to do that. What, are you going to have them go out to Everett and gamble at the casino?
They got to get online so they can play some
Celtics game tonight.
On the Celtics, that's
Make
right.
some money for the fam.
One last call. Jacqueline from Rhode Island, thank you for calling.
Hey, Jacqueline, what's up?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So I have a 19-year-old daughter, and I gave her a phone when she was in middle school, and she has dealt with depression and anxiety from then on. There's bullying, there's the images of, body
shaming
issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's had eating disorder, and we have just dealt with so much over the years with her. She's been hospitalized a couple of times. She was cutting herself for a while, has been to 3 different schools, just barely graduated high school. And it's just been a nightmare. And I really, I attribute a lot of it to the fact that you just can't shut off the social media. And these things they just come to you. You start searching one thing, and the next thing you know, you're on a website teaching you how to have anorexia.
Jacqueline,
really
you're
sorry, and thank you
talking
for the
about
call.
exactly what the Surgeon General is talking about, and I'm sorry that your daughters had to go through all this, but they're talking exactly this, that social media and content normalizes self-harming, like cutting yourself, eating disorders, which can kill you, other destructive behavior, like suicide, cyberbullying rampant, and this is all, by the way, this is, when they look at these studies, this is not because of the pandemic or because of anything, or politics or climate change. It's the arrival of the smartphone that has done this. So I think the evidence is pretty overwhelming, and that's a really.
Well, also, Jacqueline's a good example of somebody, a parent who really tried and it had a really rough time, which ends us with what we said we weren't going to talk about, is what Murthy's endgame is, the Surgeon General, which is government's got to be involved, do something, and industry has got to be forced to do some serious policing of itself so the parents get some help.
Okay, we are done with this. We are moving on to the Boston Celtics and other sports stories. We're joined by Trenny Casey from NBC Sports Boston. On the chance, however slim, that these bollocksing Celtics can turn it around. Stay with us. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We are streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
Trusted local reporters.
With your help, we want to tell the story of your community.
Your healthcare issues.
Your economic needs. Your housing issues.
Your schools.
Your climate concerns.
Our stories are better with your voice.
So feel free to reach out to us.
We love hearing from you.
This is what collaborative journalism looks like.
Your voice matters.
Your voice matters.
Your voice matters.
GBH 89.7. What matters to you.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Mitsubishi Electric, providing homeowners access to heating and cooling solutions with electric heat pump systems that can also achieve their sustainability goals. Learn more at mitsubishicomfort.com/NPR. And Bryant University, presenting the 37th Annual World Trade Day, the current state of trade, on Wednesday, May 31st. Details and registration at worldtradeday.bryant.edu.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marge Egan, Jim Browdy. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. Once again, Governor Healy joins us our next day at the library, Friday, for an hour of Ask the Governor. That's 1 to 2. We're joined now, though, at the library by Trenny Casey from NBC Sports Boston, also a weekly BPR contributor. And most importantly, at least today, she saw Taylor Swift Friday night. Hello there, Trenny.
Yeah, every time.
I think they're applauding for Taylor Swift, actually.
Obviously.
But, yes.
So many pictures online, TV. I kept looking for you in the crowd on Friday night. Did you wear sunglasses and the number 13 tattooed on your hand?
I did not put the 13 on my hand. I did have, and they looked terrible on my face. I had heart-shaped sunglasses, and all of us girls wore matching sequins jackets.
Oh, God.
We had glitter in our hair. All you need to know is the two things my husband said to me. Before I left to the concert, I had my outfit laid out, and he goes, "That's what you're wearing?" And I got home.
Very supportive.
I got home at like almost 3 o'clock in the morning. Even though we had a bus, you know, it took like an hour and 20 minutes to get out of the bus parking lot. And then once you got out of the bus parking lot, it wasn't that bad. But I didn't get home until, I haven't been up that late since my wedding night. 2:40 in the morning, and I walk in, and he stumbles up because the dog barks, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Do you have jewelry on your face?" And I said, "I do, Sean. I have jewelry on my face." So we had like a little, everybody, it is, so I've never been to a Taylor Swift concert before. It is wild. People are like, they listen, they hang on her every word. They sing along. Everyone knows every single word to every single song. They scream. I was like screaming like it was the Beatles in 1962 or something. It was, and we had actually, I have to say, we had pretty good seats. We were on the floor about 22 rows back from where, like, so her stage is like a regular long horizontal stage, and then it comes out to a diamond,
right?
and then a T. We were by the T.
Nice.
And so she sang her surprise songs out there. She came and did like songs from 1989, some songs from Red. And it's like, oh my God, that's her. That's Taylor Swift. But she is an unbelievable performer. The costume changes are incredible. And it's just, I have to admit, like, someone asked, like, well, why didn't your husband go with you? I was like, I don't want him to come with me. Like, it's a really fun experience to do with your girlfriends.
Yeah.
You know,
what percentage of the crowd were men? Because we saw a poll before that said 48% of the key fans, ardent fans was the word they used, are men. I find that hard to believe.
So there were more men than I thought there would be.
What does that mean?
I would say maybe, like, Mac Jones was there with his girlfriend, Sophie. There was a guy in front of us.
He would be the quarterback for the Patriots,
for
those who don't know. Yes.
And he wore a sequins jacket also.
Did he?
And he's like a true Swiftie. So the Patriots actually did a really funny video. They went and they asked a bunch of their players what their favorite Taylor Swift song is.
That's pretty good.
And some of them only knew like the popular ones. But clearly this age group has followed her for so long. Like Mac's favorite song of hers is Last Great American Dynasty.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like, you have to listen to Taylor Swift to know that. That's not a song
Is
that's
that,
like on the...
that's about, I
that's
thought that
a
was
song,
about the Kennedys, but it's about a family from Rhode Island.
No, it's actually about the family that she bought. She bought a house in Rhode Island, and she bought, like, one of the lines is,
Standard
and now
Oil people?
I think the Standard Oil people.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was great. Is the
it was
bottom
awesome.
line.
It was awesome. I did have to laugh. Well, one cool thing happened to us during her while she was singing "Lover." A guy proposed to a girl a couple rows in front of us. She said yes. And then I had to laugh. I actually felt bad. There was a couple. I don't know how. I mean, I know if they paid face value, they paid what we did, $374 a ticket. They were sitting like a row in front of us and just to the left. And they had two little boys. And the boys like couldn't see the concert. So they kept turning around and watching it on the big screen. And they like left at one point. I felt like, I was like, oh, this must be so miserable. And also, oh, what a waste of money.
Didn't Henry Santoro said somebody had a baby at one of the? Did he say?
Yes,
that?
somebody went into labor
Yeah.
after, like, and some woman who, because it was raining, she was stuck in a ditch. Like, this video was all over TikTok. Like, this is how much of a crazy Swiftie I became over the weekend. I downloaded TikTok just so that I could watch, because I knew I'd be up late Sunday night to watch the pathetic Celtics, which we'll get to in a second. And I was so disgusted with them, but I'm like, well, as long as I'm up and I have this TikTok now, I'll watch her. They live stream her shows on TikTok. So there were like 65,000 people at one point watching this woman's live stream because it was her surprise song. Because I wanted to see what her surprise songs would be for her 13th show at Gillette, because 13 is like her number, blah, 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 blah.
May I ask you one last question?
One last
Is she
question.
alone most of the time, or does she have other people
Oh,
come
no,
out
she's
with
got
a full stage?
backup dancers.
Okay.
She has a full band.
Okay.
She did a song. She's been touring with a woman by the name of Phoebe Bridgers. And she sings a song with her that she added to, like, on the Taylor's version of the Red album called Nothing New. So Phoebe came out and sang Nothing New
Okay.
with her. So she's got people on tour. And then in some of the surprise songs, I don't know if you guys listen to The National at all. The National's like a indie kind of, like, my husband loves them. He came out, Aaron Dresner, I believe is his name. He came out and sang a song with her called Woulda, Coulda, Should've in Nashville. Sometimes I'm convinced that when she's in Minneapolis, she'll bring Bon Iver out to sing either Exile
they're on
or
the
Evermore.
albums. Yeah.
Because she's on her albums, and he's from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which is like an hour east, of Minneapolis.
I love Bon Iver.
So she does have some, like, she'll bring people out with her. But yeah, she has a whole bit. Like, she has this one backup dancer that, like, again, if you're on like social media, you'll become obsessed with this guy. It's like this bald black guy, and he just has like this pizzazz and charisma that you're watching, not as much as you're watching her, but you, like, your eyes are drawn to him also. It is, if you have a chance to see it and you can get tickets, honest to goodness, go. It is such an amazing show. It's
We're
such an
talking
amazing show.
Trenny Casey. So let me tell you what my takeaway was from the pathetic performance, as you call
Yes,
it.
pathetic.
Magic Johnson, one of the greatest players in history, saw fit to go on Twitter and say, I've been involved in the NBA for 44 years, and I never thought I'd see a moment when the Celtics would quit. And
They
you know what
quit.
I thought about? I meant to text you. You know what I thought about? I was thinking, who's the Magic Johnson of Boston radio? And I thought, can you imagine if we did a show, and I don't know, Matty Siegel, who's been retired a year or so, tweeted out, those two are about the least competent,
God.
least prepared.
Yeah.
I would not leave my house for like a month. These guys have got to be humiliated, and they should be.
And it wasn't just Magic Johnson.
I know, it was
like,
everybody.
I don't know how much of it. I mean, the game's on late, so I don't know how much of it you guys stayed up to watch.
I watched the whole
But
thing.
Stan Van Gundy
Horrible.
called them quitters during the middle of the game. Charles Barkley
No,
said
this
they
is the
had.
best.
Charles Barkley, do you have the sound or do you not?
No, we
Okay,
don't.
okay.
The interview he did with I can't remember, one of the reserves, who said Charles Barkley's interviewing him after the game, and the guy says something like, they're unbelievable, they're well coached, they play really hard, and Barkley's response was,
No.
well, obviously you weren't watching this game.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great line.
He said they have the mental toughness of a flea.
Is that what he
That's
said?
what he said at halftime. The Celtics have the
Wow.
mental toughness of a flea. So, I mean, they obviously are not knocked out yet. You have to win 4 games in order to advance. No one in NBA history has ever come back from an 0-3 deficit to move on. But then again, we all know what happened in 2004. No one had ever come back from an 0-3 deficit in Major League Baseball playoffs. And the Red Sox, of course, ended up winning
Yankees.
4 in a row and winning the World Series. They beat the Yankees in the ALCS and ended up, of course, advancing to the World Series, beating the Cardinals in
St.
the
Louis,
World Series. So it's certainly like crazier things have happened. It just feels like, though, that this team is dysfunctional. It keeps really coming back to the coach. At one point, I'm sitting at home, and I text a lot with John Tomasi, who you guys are familiar with.
love
He's a
John.
columnist.
Yep, we love him.
He is, I think, next to Dan Shaughnessy,
He's great.
the best columnist in town right now. Like, he is funny and biting.
You used to do a
and
radio
witty.
show with him, which
We
was
did.
great on the weekends. I love that.
We did, and he writes for NBC Sports Boston now, and is on our show quite often. And I text him because Allie LaForce, who's the sideline reporter, had a report how Al Horford had sat in the coach's chair in the timeout and was talking to the guys. And I wrote him something that was vulgar, and I can't completely repeat, but I said what she probably wanted to report was they're so bleeping tired of Joe Mazzulla that they're just taking over themselves. Like, they've made some comments in postgame about how he's still learning and he's not doing the things that they want him to do, but he'll rightfully so. He's taking a lot of heat for things. It's just
he got totally trashed in the papers today.
Totally trashed every day in the papers. It's just he's in over his head. Like when Chad Finn, who usually writes very positive columns about the Celtics.
He writes straight stories mostly.
Yeah,
too.
he's a columnist. He's the TV critic.
Yeah.
He's the media critic, but he's pretty he loves the Celtics. So I think he gives them a little more rope than a lot of other columnists. He's like, Joe Mazzulla has to go.
Well, I have a question. Why would you? I know that the other coach got in trouble and they had to get rid of him, but why would you replace him with a guy? He just came from coach a Division II basketball team,
yeah.
And he's 34 years old.
He was an assistant coach too,
I
but
think,
just an assistant.
I think Brad Stevens sees something in Joe Mazzulla. I think he sees a young Chris Mannix has referred to him as his protege. And I do think, I do think Joe Mazzulla has the tools at some point to be a head coach. But to put him in this position with this team, who, again, Adrian Wojnarowski from ESPN, who's a big NBA writer, is reporting today that he is hearing that there's been dysfunction in the locker room all year because the players were upset with how they handled the Ime Udoka because they never got an explanation. The explanation they were given is only what has been told publicly. They weren't, the way that the whole thing is handled left a bad taste in their mouth. And now you've got Joe Mazzulla, and for whatever reason, and we don't know why, Brad Stevens, who is the president of basketball operations, who used to, of course, be the head coach, we don't understand why he didn't. Listen, we understand getting rid of Ime Udoka. That was something they felt they had to do. And Joe Mazzulla might have been the next natural replacement because he was already on the team. He was familiar with the guys. But what everyone said at the time is, why don't you bring in a guy, and the name that kept coming up was Frank Vogel. He used to coach the Lakers, an experienced NBA older head coach, basically an adult in the room. Joe Mazzulla is younger than Al Horford. So it's like he doesn't have a lot of experience, but they didn't do any of that. I just think all of the decisions that were made this year are now being questioned. It's just been a downward slide really since before. Really, honestly, if you really take a closer look at the Celtics season, things have been a little off since they got blown out in San Francisco against Golden State.
And that
was
your
in
analysis
December, by the
is
way.
really interesting. I'm more interested in the historic. How do you ever live? I'm going to go back to where I started. How do you ever live down when the legends of the NBA publicly say, you're losers, you're quitters. You didn't just lose.
Right,
you're
quit.
losers and you're quitters, which is the worst thing you can say about a professional athlete.
I think the only thing you can do is win.
Which they're not going to do.
Right.
By the way, you should have
at the very
said.
least, I think you can come back and win tonight, and maybe push it to 7 games. Maybe you at least make it a series again.
You
and
think
maybe
that's going to happen?
No, I don't think it's going to happen.
By the way,
but
you
I
didn't
think
quote the number that we've all memorized the last few days. There have been 149 instances in NBA history where a team has lost the first 3 games, and Zero out of 149.
The reason I didn't is because I thought it was 149. I was like, is it 149 or is it 148? And I don't want to be wrong.
It is 149. It's just unbelievable.
I know, it's unreal.
So what do you think is going to happen tonight?
Honestly, Marjorie, I don't know, but I do think it'll be an indication. To me, I think they'll go out. I hope they'll go out and win. Because at least then, I feel like they need to show that they haven't given up. Even if you don't like your coach, but then there's a part of me that's like, if they really don't like Joe Mazzulla, and if they really want to sort of make a point, and this is how the NBA is, it's what the players want. It's not what anybody else thinks is what's best. You want to go out and you want to get that coach fired, you go out and play like garbage again tonight, and he's gone.
But I don't understand.
But I don't understand why you would do that, because then you look terrible.
They don't like the coach. Let's be honest. I don't like Jamie. And Jamie is sort of our coach. He runs the show. Do I come and do a crappy job just because? Really? I do? In any case.
Sometimes Jim's in a bad mood.
Okay, let's move on. Can we talk about a legend, a total legend who just died? Talk about an inspirational story as opposed to an anti-inspirational story. For those of you who don't know, tell the story of the Hoyt family, father and son.
So Dick and Rick Hoyt. Rick Hoyt is, he passed away yesterday,
61.
died at 61. He was born with cerebral palsy. which, if you're familiar with, causes respiratory issues. It causes it's neurodegenerative. So he was been wheelchair bound his entire life. And so his father, Dick Hoyt, decided 3.5 decades ago. Dick, by the way, passed away in 2021 at the age of, I believe, 83 or 84, but decided that he wanted to give his child the experience of racing, which was something that he loved. And so they figured out how to push him in the wheelchair. So he pushed him in, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, was it 32
I don't know the
Boston
precise.
marathons?
A lot. Yeah.
And they became, at first they just did it, right? There was no fanfare around them. There wasn't a statue of them like there is now. They weren't the faces of the Boston Marathon. But year after year, Dick pushed Rick in a wheelchair. And it sparked really a change, not just for that family, but for I think families dealing with anyone who has a mobility impairment.
Totally agree.
And gave them an example of what you're capable of doing. I mean, now you see, there's this, again, I keep going back to social media. There's this girl who's in the public eye. She does some like funny media videos, like sports videos. Her brother is in a wheelchair, and her family pulls him in a raft, brings him in a bicycle, like a sidecar for a bicycle, and pushes him in running in triathlon so that he can compete and be out there with his family. And the pure joy that these individuals feel because they're a part of something, right? Like they're out there and they're racing. And now the Dick and Rick Hoyt Fund has raised millions of dollars for people just like Rick Hoyt. He actually stopped racing, I believe, in 2021. I know Dick stopped pushing him years ago, but his body, I mean, it sounds crazy, but sitting in that chair for so long, for 3-4 hours at a time, was difficult on his body, and he couldn't do it anymore.
But Dad was quite old when he stopped pushing him,
Yes.
Late 70s.
Late 70s.
I remember seeing him
Yeah.
down at the Falmouth Road Race down the Cape. And,
I mean,
did?
they were ubiquitous at road races in Massachusetts, and they were just a wonderful family who took something that is obviously really difficult on a family and turned it into something spectacular. And to have both of them gone feels almost surreal because they've been such a integral part, I think, just of the running community in Boston. So two people who will be sorely missed, but never forgotten. I mean, their legacy will live on forever with other families.
Talking to Trenny Casey.
So let's talk about one of the greats in sports, on the field anyway. Jim Brown has died at the age of 87. And he's getting kudos on his athletic abilities and not so much kudos on his personal life.
Well, his athletic abilities and his
civil
political civil rights. I mean, that that famous photograph in Cleveland, I think, with Ali and Bill Russell.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who the fourth political activist athlete was, but one of the most incredible. That was after Ali, I think, refused
to go to the
induction,
draft.
and they were supporting Muhammad. I'll forget who the fourth person was. We'll think in a minute.
So Jim Brown was a running back for the Cleveland Browns. During the 1960s, an African-American man.
Is it Sam Cooke?
No, Sam Cooke was in the film. That's where after Ali fought in Maine, you recall, Brown and Cooke. That was that movie that came out last year in the room. But in any case, there's another athlete.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and I think what's interesting, and we talked about this, when Kobe Bryant passed away. There was also someone else recently who died who had a very complicated legacy. And I have to give kudos to people who are writing these obituaries now. I mean, Jim Brown did incredible things on the football field. He changed the way the running back position was played in the NFL. But also, when Art Modell tried to basically screw him on a contract.
I didn't know that till yesterday.
I did not know that either until I read this. He said, "You know what? I'm out. I'm not playing."
In his prime.
In his prime, he retired from football.
It was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the third. It was the fourth person.
That would make sense.
I'm sorry.
Because he said he was not going to play for less than what he was worth, and that if you weren't going to pay him what he was worth, and you were going to try and move him around and screw him around, he wasn't going to he wasn't going to stand for it. So he left. He was an ardent civil rights activist.
It says in the story he was the MVP the season that he quit.
Yeah. He retired in his prime. It's similar to like Emmett Sanders, who, right?
No, Sanders from, not Emmett is not his first name.
Why?
Emmett Smith.
Emmett Smith, thank
Barry
you.
Sanders.
No,
Barry Sanders.
Emmett Smith. I'm thinking of Emmett Smith.
Yeah.
I put him together with Barry Sanders. Emmett Smith also retired. Like all of a sudden, he just decided, I don't want to do this anymore, and walked away from the game, which is incredible when you think about like what it takes to be able to do that, especially from where a lot of these guys came from, where football was their ticket out. But Jim Brown also had a history of being violent with domestic partners, very violent at times, and it's hard. I think that they are both. People can do great things, and they can also do terrible things. And I feel that more and more we're not sweeping those legacies under the rug in order to build them up once they've passed away.
I purposely read a lot of obituaries in the last 24 hours, not just because I was interested in Brown, and he was one of the greatest athletes ever, not just football, but lacrosse. People say the greatest college lacrosse player ever. I read to see how they deal with the domestic violence. And I have to say, most of the obituary writers, which is an art, dealt with it really responsibly.
Yeah.
At least I think. They virtually none ignored it. They gave it decent play, but not out of proportion play. But it needed to be mentioned because it is part of who he was and part of the harm he caused while he was doing good things by day.
And I do think it speaks to people demanding more, right, from journalists, in particular sports journalists, because we put these men, and they're almost always men, on a pedestal. And we look past their transgressions because they do great things on the court. I mean, for me, Kobe Bryant always comes to mind, right? Like what he did was horrific. He was able to pay it away and sweep it under the rug. But I could never look at him the same.
Nor could I agree with you.
Because of the rape charges brought against him. But yet so many people are able to look past that because their talent is so great. And I do find that more and more people are not tolerant of that. And so journalists can't just pretend that it didn't happen anymore. And especially for the guys, like what often happens is like Kobe was really great with the media, right? He was someone who was gregarious and charming, and it's hard to shine a light on the dark side of someone when they're nice to you.
So we only have 30 seconds. How did you do, I don't mean you personally, but you collectively at NBC Sports Boston, how did you deal with Jim Brown?
I was off on Friday.
Oh, so you don't know.
So I don't know.
I was just going to say that really quickly. The Me Too movement has worked in many cases.
Yes.
I mean, it's not perfect. We've got a long way to go, but I think this has a lot to do with that. These thousands and thousands and thousands of women coming forward with their horrific stories, and I think it's changed.
Yeah,
And
it's
I'm
just,
very
I think it's
happy.
made people think differently about it and realize that omission is allowance.
Exactly, and that many people never told what happened to them.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Next time you come next week, could you wear jewels on your face?
Sure.
Is that possible? I'd appreciate it.
I mean, I can give you guys, I'm going to Boston Calling on Saturday. I can give you guys that review if you
Perfect.
want it. This
Good
could
to
just
see you,
become
Trent.
this can become a music review segment.
Excellent review. Nice to see you, Trent.
Trenny Casey, thank you very much. Trenny Casey is an anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston. She's also a Boston Public Radio contributor. After the noon news, we're checking in with Victor Rosario, who recently won a major settlement with the city of Lowell after spending 30 years behind bars for crimes he did not commit. He'll join us next with his lawyer to tell his story. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. And
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. That's right after an NPR news break, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you and Direct Tire and Auto Service, committed to transparency in the auto repair business. Their team will text videos on the vehicle inspection process to help you understand the work they are considering. DirectTire.com. The story of the Battle of Fallujah, told by the people who lived through it. Soldiers, journalists, and Iraqis recount one of the defining episodes of the Iraq War. Watch Frontline, Once Upon a Time in Iraq, tonight at 10 on GBH2.
I'm Morning Edition co-host Paris Alston.
And I'm Morning Edition co-host Jeremy Siegel. You and I are listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org.
GBH News with NPR. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. In 1982, police pinned a house fire on 24-year-old Victor Rosario. He went on to spend 3 decades behind bars for arson and murders he did not commit. He's been out since 2017, recently received a $13 million settlement from the city of Lowell. Victor and his lawyer will join us. Then ahead of a show at the Wilbur, it's TV's Ross Matthews. You know him from The Drew Barrymore Show, RuPaul's Drag Race, and The Tonight Show.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Another Tonight Show icon will join us, the legendary heartthrob, John Davison. Nowadays, he's performing at his nightclub in Sandwich, New Hampshire. He'll join us to talk making the most of those golden years. And another dreamboat, John, Dorchester's own CNN's John King will be with us to talk through debt ceiling negotiations and other Washington headlines. All that ahead on Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. A new survey out today finds the majority of people in the United States want to see the nation's debt ceiling increased without making spending cuts at the same time. That's according to an NPR PBS NewsHour Marist poll. But NPR's Domenico Montanaro reports if the government defaults on its debts, there will be lots of blame to go around.
The survey of almost 1,300 people finds 52% of Americans don't want spending cuts attached to raising the debt limit. But there's a wide split by party. 3/4 of Democrats say they want to raise the debt ceiling first before spending cuts are negotiated. But 2/3 of Republicans and half of independents want the opposite. For months, the White House said it would not negotiate on raising the debt ceiling, considering the potentially serious consequences to the economy. But in recent days, negotiators have been meeting almost daily. And perhaps one reason for that is if a deal isn't reached and the country defaults, the poll finds independents, a key electoral swing group, would blame President Biden over Republicans by 9 points. Domenico Montanaro, NPR News, Washington.
A powerful typhoon is making its way toward the U.S. territory of Guam and the Mariana Islands. NPR's Rebecca Hersher reports the Category 4 storm is packing wind speeds of up to 130 miles per hour and could make a direct hit on Guam.
Typhoon Mawa is now powerful enough to rip roofs off buildings and uproot trees. The storm is also pushing an enormous wave of water in front of it. Devastating storm surge, high enough to sweep away homes, is forecast. Sea level rise from climate change makes such storm surge extra dangerous. The storm gained strength extremely quickly, going from a Category 1 storm to a Category 4 storm in just one day. Abnormally hot water on the surface of the Pacific Ocean helped fuel Mawa's rapid intensification. Climate change is causing ocean temperatures to rise as the world's oceans soak up excess heat trapped by greenhouse gases. Rebecca Hersher, NPR News.
The United Nations Refugee Agency says the ongoing conflict in Sudan has displaced nearly 1 million people. Raouf Mazu is an Assistant Secretary General for the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. He tells NPR that nearly 100,000 people have been crossing into neighboring Chad within the last month.
Adding another 100,000 refugees in a very poor part of the country is going to be extremely difficult. But what has to be underlined is what we saw is the extraordinary solidarity and generosity of people who have very little.
Violence broke out last month between two military factions in Sudan. On Wall Street, the Dow was up 10 points. You're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon from the GBH Radio Newsroom. I'm Henry Santoro. Boston is one step closer to having a new election map. GBH's Soraya Wintersmith reports that the City Council made changes to a map proposed by Councilor Ruth Z. Louis-Jean in a 4-hour hearing that took place yesterday.
The council tinkered with a handful of precincts, the building blocks that make up Boston's 9 voting districts. In its latest form, the revamped map returns a segment of high turnout white voters back to their original Dorchester district. Mayor Michelle Wu says the city must have a map in place by the end of the month or else risk postponing its September preliminary election. The council is scheduled to meet again for another round of map adjustments today ahead of its regular Wednesday meeting. Soraya Wintersmith, GBH News, 89.7.
Massachusetts announcing new leaders for its Office for Refugees and Immigrants. Governor Healy naming a trio of longtime advocates to top posts. Christina Aguilera Sandoval, head of the Massachusetts Immigrant Collaborative, will lead the office as its executive director. Ronnie Millar, previously with the Rion Immigrant Center, who is joining the offices of Director of Strategic Initiatives, and noted immigration lawyer Susan Church will serve as Chief Operating Officer. Millar and Church are already on the job. Sandoval set to come on board next month. And good news for all you old-school radio listeners. The Ford Motor Company has announced that it's keeping AM radios in its vehicles after all. In a tweet posted today, Ford CEO Jim Farley wrote that after speaking with policy leaders about the importance of AM radio, they're going to put them in all the 2024 Ford and Lincoln vehicles.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments' team of specialists tailor portfolios to each client's long-term goals. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investments in securities involve the risk of loss.
I'm Henry Santoro. This is GBH News.
He is Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live, as we do every Tuesday and every Friday, at the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. And on Friday, our next day at the library, Governor Healy will join us for an hour of Ask the Governor. That'll be 1 to 2 this coming Friday. So in 1983, Lowell resident Victor Rosario was just 24 years old when he was convicted of starting a house fire that ended up taking the lives of 8 people. But in truth, Rosario did not start the fire, despite being coerced into signing a confession by law enforcement. It wasn't until 30 years later in 2014 that a Middlesex Superior Court judge vacated his sentence. He'd be officially exonerated 3 years later. And earlier this month, Victor Rosario was awarded $13 million in a settlement with the city of Lowell. We're joined now on Zoom by Victor Rosario, as well as his lawyer, Mark Lovey-Reyes. Victor joins us from the Exonery Network of the New England Innocence Project, and that project, the Exonery Network, provides support and empowerment for people who are released from prison after having served time for wrongful convictions. His 2 co-founders, Sean Ellis, more than 20 years in jail for crimes he did not commit, and Ray Champagne, more than 40 years in jail for crimes he did not commit. Victor, it's good to see you again, and Mark, good to meet you. Thanks for being here.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us and explaining this really upsetting story. Let's start with the attorney here, Mark Lovey-Reyes. Tell us, attorney, what happened to your client all these years ago?
Well, Victor Rosario was the victim of an overly aggressive investigation team in Lowell who made a false determination that a tragic fire was arson. Victor was identified because he had tried to save people inside the house. He cut himself, gave his name, gave his address to the ambulance, gave his name and address to the hospital, and police found him. Through that, decided that falsely that it was arson, and decided that Victor did it. And they set about creating evidence to establish their false case.
So, Victor, you were a 24-year-old kid. You confessed to this crime that you didn't commit. What were the circumstances that led you to do that, Victor?
Basically, I don't know was in my right mind. Basically, that's the way that I can describe her. Basically, I think that I was going through a trauma about what I observed on the fire and the screaming of children inside the house, that I was able to help them. I think that was one of the things that really affected me, even though know where I was.
So, Victor, by the way, we should make clear, like Mark suggested a minute ago, not only was the ultimate finding that Victor was not responsible for arson, the ultimate finding was there wasn't even arson to begin with. But again, as Mark said, that Victor tried to save people. Yep. Victor, you spent 3 decades in jail. Did you, for most of that time, think you'd die in jail as well?
Well, basically, I was preparing myself for it. One of the things that always, even the parole board in Massachusetts, they was expecting me to take responsibility for a crime that did never commit.
and I was basically just preparing myself. If I have to die in prison, I would never admit it, something that I never did.
Even, wait a second, even if you believe that admitting it would get you out to spend the rest of your life free, you weren't willing to make that principled compromise.
I would never do that. I would never. I basically, this is what we call in the prison system, we call play the system. And sometimes guys play the system and admitting things that even they not ever did, just because looking for be free.
Understood.
But I was a person that I would not compromise my insanity, my freedom, my way of being. My own consciousness don't say anything. I feel peace in myself that I would be able to live no matter where I was. Yes, it's painful to think about it, but I was ready for whatever happened to me, even inside the prison system. But I would never come out and say accepting something or take responsibility for something that I never committed. And one of the things that the parole board, especially in Massachusetts, they expect them to show remorse.
I understand.
How you can show remorse for something that you never commit? There's no way that any human being can do that. If I do that, basically he's faking it. And I would not fake it anyway, especially a tragedy like this. I would never do that.
Well, Victor Rosario, one of the things I wanted to underscore before we move on to the Exonerating Network and what you have done in prison is really the horror of your interrogation at the hands of police. As you said, you were 24 years old, you just went through this trauma, horrible fire, trying to rescue people, children were killed in this fire. And then, according to this lawyer that in this Quest for Justice story behind the exoneration, she talks about the fact that you were dealing with a translator, with the cops, and then that you were basically incoherent at the end of this interrogation. You couldn't even understand what was being said. So this was really taking advantage in a pretty horrible way. Tell us about that.
It's more, it's like, déjame decirte algo, si yo te hablo español ahora mismo a ti y tú verdaderamente no entiendes nada de lo que yo estoy hablando, if I start a speech to you in Spanish right now, you will be confused. You will be, what he's talking about. You will be confused. And I think that in that moment, I was completely confused. I don't know what's going on. I even made the trust that even the interpreter at least can let me know what's really going on, and that's never happened. And I think that's the language barrier that I have at that time. It was completely one of the factors that create in this type of confession that they call in confession, and signing thinking that I was going to home, and I think that's what I can say about that. Right now, we see.
Oh, go ahead. By all accounts, too, the interrogation was an overnight interrogation. They didn't get anything signed that was incriminating from Victor until approximately 5 a.m. And by all accounts, everybody who was in that room all testified that Victor had an obvious physical or mental breakdown.
Yeah.
Mark, talking to you for a second, when I met Victor, I don't know, a year ago, and when I met Sean Ellis, who, as I said, spent 22 years in jail for crimes he did not commit. I never got to meet Ray Champagne. The first thought I have after listening to their story is how many more Sean Ellises and how many more Victor Rosarios are there where a team of Globe reporters didn't do terrific work like they did, a team of great lawyers like you and your colleagues didn't do what they did. There's no reason to believe there are not others like them sitting in jail, probably rotting away for the rest of their lives, where the truth has not been found. Is that not a fair
There
statement?
absolutely are, yeah. And you know, our law firm is lucky enough to represent Ray Champagne, now his estate. But it typically takes somebody who believes in the prisoner, and we live in a society where people don't believe in prisoners. They don't believe that they're worthy of help. Victor was fortunate enough to have Andrea Peterson, a lawyer who spent years fighting injustice. Other clients that I've had here in the Commonwealth and outside the Commonwealth have teams of people who support them, but there are so many people who are in prisons right now who don't have that support, who don't have those resources that can be brought to bear to expose wrongful convictions.
Mark, I want to stay with you for a second because, and we're going to talk to Victor, as Marjorie said in a minute, about this fabulous organization within the Innocence Project that Victor and Ray and Sean set up called the Exoneree Network. But not only, as you say, are there a lot of people sitting in jail for decades for crimes they didn't commit, but even for those who are fortunate enough to get out, the struggle to get adequate compensation in an allegedly liberal Massachusetts, where I think the cap is $1 million, no matter how many years you spent in jail, it's almost impossible for somebody, and usually years of fighting, until there's anything close to the settlement that Victor got here. Is anybody seriously talking about reforming this system so that if somebody is exonerated, they have at least a financial chance to restart their lives?
There is talk in Massachusetts about changing the amount of compensation under the wrongful conviction statute that Massachusetts has. I will say my law firm, Lovie & Lovie, we litigate across the country. Massachusetts is one of the most challenging places for prisoners who have been wrongfully convicted to obtain compensation because there are limits on how much governments can indemnify their employees for the misconduct. Other states have it. If the damages are caused by a law enforcement officer in the scope of his employment, the municipality pays. In Massachusetts, there's a very severe limit on that.
And by the way, we should say Ray Champagne, who's the state you're representing, 41 years in jail, and after his release died without having received one single nickel for 4 decades of wrongful incarceration. It's just unimaginable.
Absolutely. And he is not the first client that our firm has had who has died very shortly after coming out. A lot of prisoners come out. They haven't had sufficient medical care. They're older. We've had clients die just after being released and basically have lost their entire adult lives. It's tragic, and the governments, the Commonwealth, don't really provide anything when prisoners leave, even when they've been exonerated. They don't get an apology. They don't get resources. They have to go to court to be able to get those resources.
We're talking to Mark Lovie-Reyes, who is the attorney for Victor Rosario, who spent 3 decades in prison for a crime he did not commit. Victor, I understand that you became a Baptist minister while you were incarcerated. Tell us about that.
Basically, when I went to a prison system, I dedicated myself. I have to make a choice between hate or love, and I found out that the love would keep me survive. And I dedicate myself to help the others prisoners inside the prison system. And from that, I started working with the chaplaincy team in Walpole and also in Norfolk, and every place that I went, I always working with the chaplaincy team inside the prison system. And that the way that I keep myself basically in mentally, spiritual, and physical and health. And from that, in 2019, the Tremont Temple Baptist Church gave me the ordination inside the prison system. And that's where in the Boston Globe, they publicized that I was the first prisoner in the state of Massachusetts that came to be a minister in prison.
I've heard over the years some disparaging remarks about so-and-so found the Lord while he was in prison, but I can imagine there would be a lot of your fellow prisoners that found their faith to be helpful in prison.
Yes. I think that is the way, basically, to keep yourself out of a situation My conduct inside the prison system, it was basically, I think that I have 4D report. That's all D report is basically when your conduct, when you don't behave yourself in a prison system. And I only have 4 in 32 years. That show you basically what kind of conduct I have inside the prison system in Massachusetts.
You know, Victor, we're talking to Victor Rosario, spent more than 3 decades in jail for crimes he did not commit. One of his lawyers, Mark Lovey Reyes, is joining us as well. You know, Victor, when I met you for the first time, you and I, before we went on the air, Sean Ellis was there, we were on TV, you were wearing a sweatshirt with the photograph of one of my favorite baseball players of all time, Roberto Clemente, who played for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I was a Phillies fan, and he obviously died on a humanitarian mission. What are you going to say?
You had a good memory.
I do, but you know what I remember more? I remember, and you were laughing then too, and I said to you before we went on air, I would be so consumed with anger if anything like this was done to me that I couldn't even function. Why are you not angrier at the world and at the people who did this? You people, if you're not watching the streaming or here, see Victor with a smile on his face. Why aren't you angrier, Victor?
I think it's my faith, my kid positive thinking, that the way I look things is not, because anger is something that they can destroy a human body. And I don't think that will, I can survive. I started having anger because that's going to create some situation like fighting, getting mad, and all those things. For the things they happen into my life, I accepted everything that happened into my life in a way that I can transform anything that is negative, transform it in positive. The adversity, trying to get some blessing through the adversity. I know that one day I will be out because I believe that God is just, and because I believe that God is just, that's what keeps me the way I am. And it's nothing that I can say, well, I don't create anything that caused me this. It's something that happened to me, and I accepted that. And when you accept, and the word accepting is you accepting the situation where you are, no matter what it is, and trying to overcome from that situation. And that's what happened to me. And then, I received so many blessings because so many people that really believe in me and trust me and care about me. Those are the people that start working on my behalf. And today, we can see that we have an Amar Regis, right beside me, is because he cares for justice. And that is one of the beautiful things that any human being can. What I'm going to be angry, and then I smile.
Well, you're an incredible human being, Victor Rosario, let me tell you.
I cannot imagine what it must have been like to be sent to prison for killing 8 people in a fire, including 5 children. Now you've been exonerated. I wonder if you've had any communication with anybody that was involved in that fire, with the survivors or with the families of the kids or anything else. Have they spoken to you? Have you spoken to them?
Well, I have the opportunity, I believe it was in 89. In 89, I have the opportunity to meet one of the mothers, the victims, they went to prison to visit me. And one of the sisters, they visited me in prison. And I had that wonderful experience with them. They was looking for answers. They was looking for the true answers, because so many things they say in 82, people say so many things about me that they start believing, and they have to face because they was missing something, and they went to prison and visited me. That's never going to happen. But for me, I look at it, that was a blessing from the sky, because even the system, the correctional facility, how they allow that to happen. But happened. They went to visit me, and I have proof about it. And And I had the opportunity to talk to them and let them know who I was and who I am today. And I had the opportunity to express myself and to let them know that I was an innocent man, that the only thing that I'm trying to do, it was just trying to help them. And from that, I feel so good about it. That's the only two people that I really have been touched by. And long time after that, I don't know where they are.
Victor, did they believe you that day when you spoke with them in the prison?
Yes.
They did?
Yes, because they continue visiting me.
They did?
For several times, yes.
Victor
Yes.
Rosario, could you describe, we mentioned that you were one of the three co-founders of the Exoneree Network within the New England Innocence Project. And as I said, all three men were founders, spent 2 decades, 3 decades, and 4 decades in jail for crimes they didn't commit. Why did you form it? What's the goal of the Exoneree Network? What's the hope about what help you can provide for people like you?
Well, basically, it's because we saw ourselves, in the need of how to go and integrate into society. The experience that I had, the experience that Sean had, and the experience that Ray had, God bless his soul. It was an amazing because we was basically together. And then the Innocent Project, we talked with the Innocent Project and how we're going to create this to try to help the others that coming beside us, because we know there is a lot of people inside the prison system that they are innocent and they need some help. And we need to give you the same provision that we need in the moment that we come out. One of the things is to how to get it into the computer system, how to get it in the technology, how to get housing for them, how to create basically the way that they can have identifications, all that, because we don't have any identification, we don't have license, we don't have nothing, just only we came out. The way we are, I look at it like we wasn't like living in a world of dinosaurs, because Massachusetts system, they know how providing the programs that we really need to be in touch with society. And that's one of the things that Sean, Ray, and myself, we started talking about it in conjunction with the New England Innocent Projects, and that's where the network born.
Yeah. Mark Lovey, Reyes, I wanted to stay on that for a minute. When I spoke to people like Sean and Victor, it wasn't just mechanical skills, how to turn on a computer, how to use a cell phone, how to text people. But I talked to both of them about the loneliness that so many people experience if they don't have a family like Victor does coming out. Their family were the people with whom they served, who they can't have contact with anymore. Beyond big compensation and fair compensation, which we talked about a minute ago, I know the state gave in its budget $250,000 to the Innocence Project, I think last year, for the Exoneree Network. Does the state or the cities, does any government entity do anything for that transitional time for people, men or women, who are exonerated?
None of my clients who have been exonerated in the Commonwealth have received any sort of transitional services to help them go from being in prison for decades back into the real world. So not that I know of. My clients certainly have not been offered any such transition services like that, and they desperately need them.
So is that the governor's with us on Friday? What should we be broaching with Governor Healy? In the past, we've talked to her about the compensation issue years ago when she was Attorney General. What are the issues that you think she should be confronting on this front?
Well, I think what we're just talking about, the first is compensation, so that people don't have to worry about how they're going to live when they get out. And the second thing is what you just said, services that will allow people to transition oftentimes from over 3 decades in prison to a world that is dramatically different from the one that they lived in beforehand. And those services, need to encompass all sorts of things, both how to navigate the world, technology, all the changes that have gone on in the community, mental health issues, All of those things are things that really should be addressed by the government that cause these wrongful convictions.
By the way, we should say that, well, I think all four of us would agree, and hopefully the audience does too, the government here has to do more in a supposedly caring state. In the interim, the Exoneree Network is doing incredible things. And if you just Google Exoneree Network, you'll be guided to the website of the New England Innocence Project, and you'll be able to learn about it, contribute to it if you choose, help in any way you can. But Mark, congratulations. And Victor, we're really glad to see you. And I have to say, I know I speak for Marjorie, we have great admiration for the kind of human being you are. You're quite an amazing soul. So it's good to see you again.
I agree. It's been an honor representing Victor.
Thank you. Glad you said that, Mark. Victor, be well. Hope to see you again soon. Mark, take care. See you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing Victor's story.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Victor Rosario, who was just awarded a major settlement from the city of Lowell after spending 30 years behind bars for a crime he didn't commit. He works with the Exoneree Network of the New England Innocence Project, and his lawyer, Mark Loby-Reyes. Thank to both of them again for coming on with us, I should say. Okay, after a quick break, a little change in tone here. We're going to be joined on Zoom by TV's Ross Matthews, former intern for Jay Leno, now co-host of The Drew Barrymore Show and a judge on RuPaul's Drag Race. He's on the road with his own one-man show.
We listen to what matters to you.
I'm Juliette Feibel in Worcester, and what matters to me is the ability of people to live, make art, and stay in the city.
I'm Olivia Scanlon from Worcester, and what matters to me is the power of live performance, the ability of live theater to explode people's imaginations and expand their notion of what is possible.
Your voice matters. GBH News 89.7. What matters to you?
Support for GBH comes from you. And Swan Galleries with modern and post-war art at auction May 25th, with paintings by Norman Lewis, Edith Schloss, and Jim Dine, as well as a selection of Latinx and Latin American art.
The governor 1-2, but now we're joined on Zoom by the incredibly svelte Ross Matthews. He's a comedian and TV personality extraordinaire. You can catch him co-hosting the Drew Barrymore Show, as a judge on RuPaul's Drag Race, and you can see his show, I Gotcha Girl, live at the Great Wilbur on June 9th. Ross, it is a thrill to meet you. Thanks so much for being here.
I got you, girl. I love that you're going to have the governor and Ross Matthews.
That's right.
Really, you do run the gamut, don't you? Isn't that beautiful?
I would say so.
We do run the gamut, absolutely. So, Gotcha Girl, tell people about this and tell people what they could see if they get to the Wilbur.
It's so much fun. So it is June 9th, Friday, June 9th at the Wilbur. Tickets at helloross.com. I'm doing my stand-up. It's me on stage. After the past, few years, it's been a little rough for everybody. And I know more than ever, we got to have each other's back, And so that's really what this celebrates, especially like gay guys and the women who love us,
Exactly.
We'll go out, we'll hang out. If you need me to hold your hair back, if you go too hard, honey, while I'm back there, I'll French braid it for you, okay? We got you. And that's what it is, me doing stand-up and so much more, because then I go out into the audience and nothing is off limits. We play games. There's giveaways. You ask me anything. We kicked it off, my tour, and I'm going everywhere this summer. Kicked it off on Long Island. And 700 people showed up. It was the most outrageous time. And the number one thing people said to me was,
what?
I didn't know that I needed to laugh like that again. It had been too long. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
Yes.
I Gotcha Girl, that applies, I assume, to Drew Barrymore. I mean, your relationship is pretty tight, no?
Yeah, it's such a miracle. Honestly, I didn't really know her. I'd interviewed her like once or twice. But then in the pandemic, she launched her show. I went through a tough time losing my mom in the pandemic, and she was all alone. Drew was all alone in the studio, no studio audience. It was a weird time to launch a show. And I popped in for a day, and it's like we needed each other. It was instant family, and I just never left. I wasn't supposed to stick around, but I never left, and now I get to co-host that show with her every single day. And she's become like a sister. She was the flower girl at our wedding.
Really?
On Long Island, by the way. I'm sorry to hear that it was Long Island, but it's the best you can do. It's okay. Ross, I know we're supposed to talk about your show, and I want to talk about your weight thing, because I'm obsessed. My whole life, I gain 20, I lose 20. First of all, tell me it was not Ozempic. It was not Ozempic.
It was not.
Raise your right hand and say it's not Ozempic.
I swear on everything that is sacred. I swear on the Golden Girls that it was not Ozempic.
Absolutely. That's good enough for us.
Serious.
Absolutely.
So what'd you do? How'd this happen?
And I with you. My weight, I was always up and down. I always say I could be a weight detective because every time I lost it, I'd always find it again somehow.
Thank you.
But no, it really was when my mom passed away, and I just being there with her and realizing the only thing that could control between where I am now and my last day on this planet was taking care of myself, choice by choice, meal by meal. And I started cooking my recipes where I really cracked the code on food because I'm not going to give up flavor and texture. So I really had to figure food out. And it's been a 3-year journey, and I've been down 60 pounds, and I've been here at this weight for 3 years.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Well, by the way, Marjorie's position on the show, you probably don't listen to it every day, is all that matters
probably not.
is how you look. I mean, it really doesn't matter what you say. It's all about how you look.
Yeah, well, it's more for women than for guys. But, I want to ask you about your time being an intern for Jay Leno. First of all, how did it happen that you became an intern at Jay Leno's and on late night TV every night? And how do you get to be from a lowly intern to off interviewing all these stars at the Oscars?
He wasn't a lowly intern. He was an intern.
Yes, I was.
Oh, you
no,
were.
I was a lowly. Yeah, I was working for free. I was delivering mail. I mean, I was in college. I grew up in a little farm town in Washington State, about as far as from Boston as you can get. But I always loved show business. And so when I went to college, I said, I'll go somewhere outside near Los Angeles so I can just be showbiz adjacent. I always wanted to be a talk show host. And so I magically got an internship at Leno, working for free. And then I wanted to know how it all worked. What does a writer do? What's a producer do? Who's the guy that pulls the cord that makes the curtain open? So I talked to people. And one day a comic dropped out of covering the Ocean's 11 premiere. This is back in 2001, December 6, 2001.
Okay.
And the writer who I talked to said, you know who's funny is that Ross in the hallway. And they brought me in and they said, we're going to send you out. And I thought to myself, they thought it was a gimmick. And I thought, oh, this is how it's going to happen. Because I just knew. I knew it would happen. And that was 22 years ago, if you can even believe that.
Okay, so you're at the Oscars. There's all these stars. There's all these big-time reporters from all these entertainment networks, etc. And you're the Jay Leno intern. And you got an interview with Will Smith, Tim Robbins, Ben Stiller, people I didn't even recognize.
Tim Robbins gave him his damn Oscar.
Yeah. So
Yes,
did you
he
just
did.
march up to them? I mean, how did that happen?
Yes. I did. The thing is, it was such unbridled enthusiasm, just a love of pop culture that I'm sure every other reporter on the line, the press line, hated me. But I really just elbowed my way to the front. And just did it against the rules. Everyone asked me, like, did you have a wonderful night tonight?
Yeah.
What's it like to win an Oscar? I was like, what kind of socks are you wearing? Did you get them at Target? I want to know everything, like beginning to end. And I think it was just refreshing, that it was totally authentic. And it's always been authentic. And I think I carried that with me through the red carpets and Chelsea Lately and RuPaul's Drag Race. And even still in the Drew Barrymore show over 2 decades later. I'm just grateful. I'm so grateful to be there. I get it. Most people who sound and look like me don't get to be on television, especially when I was a kid. And now I've been doing it over 2 decades. It feels pretty great.
And you're doing pretty great. By the way, that's the voice of Ross Matthews. He's in I Gotcha Girl he is I Gotcha Girl, live at the Wilbur on June 9th. You go to thewilbur.com. When I was talking about you to Marjorie this morning, I said I'm jealous of Ross for 2 reasons. One, because of the weight loss, which is really incredible. Number 2, and years ago, my dream in life was to be the answer in a crossword puzzle. And unfortunately, Marjorie was the answer in a Wall Street Journal crossword puzzle. And it really upset me.
Thank you.
And I made the Worcester Telegram puzzle, but it wasn't quite the same. My second dream was to be in a mirror at a Days Inn. And you are now in a mirror at a Days Inn. What is that?
I can't believe you're asking about this. I love this. I partnered with Days Inn, and right now there are 16 locations across the country where you can ask to be put in a room with a complimentary mirror. And what it is, it's really a mirror with a button, and you push the button, and it's my stupid voice giving a beautiful compliment to you. And it really, because it's like, oh, I didn't know we had a supermodel staying with us. Pose. It's really fun things. But the point of this is really what I try to do, and my purpose here is just to sort of give people a little smile, and that's what, if you're on the road and you're out there and you're driving cross country or something, you're staying at Days Inn, it'll give you a little giggle when you press a little button and get a compliment.
You got to go home to your husband on Long Island at night and say, do you believe I am making money for being in a mirror in a Days Inn? I mean, really? Do you not say that? Tell the truth.
You know what? I don't say those words, but I do think it's funny. It is a little funny that you're in a mirror. I'm in a mirror. And to be honest with you, that was like a little milestone of success for me.
Sure
it was like,
was.
oh my God, they asked me to use my voice. The thing, because I was told specific, I was made fun of for my voice growing up, of course, and in the early days. And people told me I could never be on TV because of my voice. And now I'm, partnering with big brands to use my voice. And that to me is sort of a full circle kind of thing.
It is a great circle.
So tell us about your book. Tell us about your book, and then we want to ask you about the person that
we got to see, he's written 2 books. We want to know, what Marjorie wants to know is you wrote a book in 2013.
That's right.
Where Gwyneth Paltrow did the intro, and we want to know what everybody wants to know, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
No,
not
come
guilty.
on.
And the skiing accident.
And one of the best people in the entire world. She gets such, people throw a lot of judgment her way. But let me tell you a quick story about her.
But give us the name of your books, too, so we can give free advertising.
Sure. So Gwyneth wrote the foreword in my book, Man Up, Tales of My Delusional Self-Confidence. That's the first book. The second book is Name Drop. But the first book really is all about me growing up in a little farm town, knowing, basically as like a gay cartoon human being, knowing that I would be a talk show host one day. That's what that's about. But when I met Gwyneth, it was at my first Oscars, and I always loved her. And she walked up, and I asked her to be my best friend, because who would do that? I don't know, but I did. And she had seen me cover the Salt Lake City Olympics, and she said, absolutely, I'm in. And I gave her my email address, and the next day she emailed me. This was back in 2002. She emailed me, and we emailed every day back and forth for 6 months about real stuff. Like at first it started funny, and then about real stuff, losing our fathers, everything.
Oh.
And I thought, wait, either someone's like really playing a joke on me, or this is really Gwyneth Paltrow. So I said, we should go to lunch, like it was an online date, like I was on Grindr. We should go to lunch. And she goes, okay. And we went to the Ivy, and there was paparazzi out, and I couldn't afford one of the salads on the menu, nothing. And she paid, and we sat down, and I said, I can't believe it's you. And she goes, give it 30 seconds, you'll forget about it. And now it's 20-some years later, and we're still besties.
Wow.
She's just amazing.
So we shouldn't be making fun of her company, Goop, all the time. Is that not unkind of us? Because we have made fun of Goop a few times.
You can make fun of it. She's just gonna, you know what I mean? She's like a billionaire now, so she doesn't care.
How many vagina candles do you have, Ross, exactly?
No, that's one area that I had to tap out.
So...
We're talking to Ross Matthews. He's at the Wilbur on June 9th, and I got you, girl.
So, I don't mean to be unfunny for a second, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this. I mean, you're a big star, RuPaul's drag show. We've had all over the country these protests outside these library drag shows. We've had some of the stars of the drag shows in here to talk to us. Even in Boston, which I think of as a pretty liberal place, we've had these weird people show up at these drag shows.
Nazis, not weird people, Nazis.
Yeah, with masks on, white supremacists and all this kind of stuff. So what do you think about all this?
Well, it's terrifying because it affects everybody that I really know. And it's just about, drag is just about artists kind of expressing expressing themselves and their art. And really drag is about fun. Drag's about, oh my God, mimosas and dollars up and brunch and people coming together and joy and color. And it's scary. It's scary that people are actually being killed for this, and especially you talk about under our umbrella of queer or LGBTQ, we welcome everybody that needs us, the community. So our trans family are being under attack and used as a social wedge issue, which is not new. It has been done many times before, but I have faith that this time it's not going to work because you can't put this genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
Culturally, we're out there because of shows like RuPaul's Drag Race, because I get to be on TV. People know us now. Even if you don't know us, you know us. And it turns out we're just human beings. So I think they're trying to use a play from an old playbook, and I don't think it's going to end up working. But in the real time, as drag queens are in the trenches, on the streets, in the bars, it is scary because we have seen people killed. It's terrifying.
So speaking of terrifying in another way, Ross Matthews, every time we speak to somebody who is prominent enough to have a one-person show, I say, I can't imagine anything more terrifying. I can see doing a show with Drew Barrymore. I can see doing RuPaul's Drag Race. I can see even The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. I can't imagine what it's like to stand up in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people and do your shtick for fear that they're not going to laugh, they're not going to get into it. How do you deal with that?
It doesn't even occur to me. What occurs to me is what terrifies me is that I will mess something up that won't execute the vision that I have. But in terms of like going out there with people, I'm not afraid of people. I'm actually more comfortable in front of 700 people than I am one-on-one in a weird way. It feels like such a welcoming place. I don't know why. I hear how it sounds. It sounds insane, but I have just found over these 2 decades that people have been so kind. And when they show up, think about this. They're buying a ticket. They're going to dinner. They're putting on that shirt that they'd feel really good in they're coming out. I'm not scared of you. You chose to be here. You're excited. So I don't know. Nothing about them scares me.
I have great advice for you. Now, even though you didn't ask for it, I'm thinking about this right now. And you're not scared. Christopher Muther is the travel writer for the Globe, and he's a huge ABBA fan. And for the Globe, he went to London to see this absurd virtual ABBA performance for which you pay, what do you pay, $190 or something?
I don't know.
Why don't you do your show live in Boston and have the Mirror do the show like in Pittsburgh on the same night?
Good.
Think about that for a second.
Idea.
I think it is a good idea.
I'll wheel it out my days in Mirror, and I'll just keep pushing the button.
I like it.
Right?
I like
it.
And
I'll just take a chill pill and hang out on the side. That's a great idea.
Talking to Ross Matthews, I got you girls at the Wilbur on June 9th.
So I'm always fascinated by people who do stand-up too, because I would find it terrifying as well. But I always wonder, and I've asked different people this, do you have like 3x5 cards hidden somewhere, or do you put them on a bench or something like that to make sure if you start to forget? Because that's the scariest part. You'll forget, and you'll be tongue-tied.
You're totally right. And I do, just because I've just started on May 11th was my first show on Long Island. And so on that show, I had bullet points taped to the floor, totally cheating, right? But not the script. To the floor. And then I get out there, and what I didn't do is test them. And Grandpa's now 43, and I have progressive lenses, but I didn't bring my glasses. So my bullet points were down there, but I couldn't read a single one of them. So it was whatever.
So did you sneak down? Were you pretending you're dropping things on the floor, or did you just go wild and say forget it?
It turned out I had it all memorized, but I was I was petrified I wouldn't. But
But it's a different time. Were you here the day Gerard Carmichael was on with us?
Yes, I think so.
I went to see him at the Wilbur that night. Have you seen him perform? He has a notebook with him, and he basically, I don't mean he reads his act, but he refers to his notebook repeatedly during the show to remind him where the hell he is.
It's smart because he's so unapologetic about it. He's like, this is what we're doing, which is great. I mean, a stupid Ross tries to hide it. But then I watched the Joan Rivers documentary, and Joan was a friend of mine. I love Joan.
Yeah.
And she had big, huge cards written on the floor with her jokes. And when I saw her do that, I mean, the best that's ever been, I thought, you know what? It's okay if I have a couple notes to help me. If Joan Rivers did it, it's okay for me.
It's good enough for me.
On the floor, I never thought of that. I thought it would be on a bench on the side somewhere. Maybe there was a secret teleprompter, but on the floor, something to consider, Jim.
So we wish you luck. It's a pleasure to meet you, by the way. We were thrilled that you were coming on today. Good luck with the Mirror. Nice. I think the Mirror thing is huge. I think I'm serious.
Well, there's how many days in? You're in coast to coast, and the days in, right? They're all over the place. So every day is in. Well, Ross, it's been a pleasure to meet you.
Good luck on the 9th.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a great time in Boston, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Of course, it's a thrill. Everyone come out if you can. The Wilbur, June 9th. The HelloRoss.com. You can get tickets. Let's have fun again. Remember fun? Come on.
I remember fun.
Yeah.
HelloRoss.com and thewilbur.com.
Yes.
Ross, take care. Good to see you.
We will say it again. We will say it again for people that want to get tickets. And that, of course, was TV personality RuPaul Judge and Drew Barrymore show co-host Ross Matthews. Going to be June 9th at the Wilbur, as Ross just said. If you want information and get tickets, go to thewilbur.com. That's thewilbur.com. And you gave another website, too. Give me that website as well.
Hello, Ross. My website, HelloRoss.com.
HelloRoss.com or thewilbur.com. Ross Matthews, thank you so much.
Ross. Be well.
You're the best. See you next time.
Not so bad yourself. See you next time.
After a quick break, we've got another big TV personality, Tonight Show mainstay, New Hampshire's own and West Bridgewater's own. John Davison is back ahead of the summer season at his Club Sandwich. We're going to tell you all about that. John Davison is next for Conversation and Song. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
Many people with long COVID have had to take a leave from their jobs. Now they rely on long-term disability checks to survive, and getting approved has become increasingly difficult.
It's very frustrating for everybody. It's frustrating for patients, for doctors. And insurance companies will say, we're not paying until we figure this out.
That story on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Turkish Airlines. The Stopover in Istanbul program offers passengers connecting via Istanbul Airport the opportunity to explore the city's history and cultural life. More information at turkishairlines.com. And Rockland Trust Bank, dedicated to providing advice and support to the community for over 115 years. More at rocklandtrust.com. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. Governor Healy joins us at the library for an hour on Friday for Ask the Governor 1 to 2. So we just spoke with Ross Matthews. You know him from The Tonight Show, one iteration. That was with Jay Leno and RuPaul's Drag Race. Here's a recent clip of RuPaul speaking with Drag Race judge and style guru Carson Kressley.
Now, Carson, any truth to the rumor that you once dated Pete Davidson?
Oh, no comment. And yes, it never happened.
Oh, did I say Pete Davidson? I meant John Davidson.
No comment.
No comment. Well, we're joined by one of my favorites of all favorites, the great entertainer, singer, 70s TV mainstay, John Davidson himself. These days, when RuPaul is making fun of him on TV, he hosts shows at John Davidson's Club Sandwich in Sandwich, New Hampshire, where I'm going this summer. In a few minutes, he'll play some music, but in the interim, we're thrilled to see you. Hello, John. How are you?
Hi, Jim. Hi, Marty.
Great to see you, John.
Now, this is very personal, but my hearing aids are squealing inside.
Oh, no.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
I'm that old.
You are.
Do you need some help from our very talented staff here?
Can you hear them going, wee, wee?
No, we can't. We can't.
When I'm in the recording, I just went in the recording studio trying to do some things for my club, and so I wear these. See, they're like that, right?
Oh yeah, you can't even see them.
Yeah.
You can't even see them.
No, you can't see them because I try to, it's
whatever.
I don't care. Well, what the heck?
Yeah.
I'm going to be 82 this fall.
Oh my God.
That's
82.
an applause line, by the way. When someone says they're 82 and they're still alive, you're supposed to applaud.
No,
now, can I ask you a question on that note?
Of course,
this
is your show.
You've been here like 10 seconds and you told us you were 82. Everybody who calls our show who is over 70 feels the first thing they have to tell us
is
how old they are.
I'm sorry.
Is that because they're thrilled they're still alive? Or what is that? How old are you again?
82.
82.
My God. No, I'm not. I'm 81 right now.
You are?
I'm going to be 82.
Well, we hope.
I went to a friend of mine and I said, do I look like I'm 81?
No.
Tell me.
No.
Okay. And she said, no.
Absolutely not.
You used to, but not anymore.
That's a pretty good line,
yes,
actually.
You're eating a lot of carrots or something, like having a lot of salads.
Yeah, but
stuff like
why
that.
do older people do that?
That's my question. I asked you that.
What else do we have then to be proud of how old you are?
Exactly.
I don't. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to try to stop doing that.
No, you don't have to stop. I'm just asking the question. By the way, the one thing I would ask you to do, though, because you showed us the hearing aids.
What?
If you've got like a diper thing going, we don't want to see that. I'm trying to preempt a little.
That was very funny.
We
thank you.
We have a lot more important questions.
We do?
Because I said to John before that we read
by the way.
this Jeff Edgar's piece in the Washington Post. It used to be the Boston Globe, by the way. And I had no idea of every single solitary. You're like Zelig. You've met everybody that's famous for the last 20th century. But before we get to all the people you know, I hope you can tell us some stories about them and how you met them, is tell people that don't know what's going on up at Club Sandwich in Sandwich, New Hampshire. What's the deal?
I've lived in New Hampshire for 6 years. I grew up in West Bridgewater.
Yes, I saw that.
Outside of Brockton.
Yeah.
I had a Pakeha accent. And
exactly.
In the 8th grade, my dad was a preacher. He kept going to bigger churches. So we got a church in White Plains, New York. And so we moved to New York. And I raised my hand in 8th grade. I said, "What's my MAC?" What's my grade? What's my MAC?
Got it, yeah.
And the girls laughed. And in 8th grade, when girls laugh, you immediately change. So I lost my accent totally. But I've always wanted to get up into Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont. I like the trees. I like the people. In New Hampshire, people are in your face. People will tell you what they think about this or that, and I like that. Anyway.
So describe the club to us, by the way. It sounds fabulous.
I found an old barn in Center Sandwich, and I decided to open a club there and call it Club Sandwich. I have a gift for the obvious. And so I perform there every Friday and Saturday night, starting June 2nd and going till October 21st. And I present guest artists on the
Thursday nights.
On Thursday nights, and I have a list of that. And I left my little card. Amy, where's that card that I?
Amy, where are you?
Do you have that card?
Well, I can tell you who's performing at the end of the season. Patty Larkin, who's with us a couple of weeks ago.
She was great.
She's one of my favorite performers ever.
It was wonderful.
She's sold out. We tried to do a second show and do but anyway, yes.
Patty Larkin. This barn, they're like easy chairs kind of thing, right?
There's mostly sofas.
Sofas.
Yeah, you can sleep during my show. You can. It's sofas and overstuffed chairs. I've always wanted that. So, but it is a barn. It's a horse barn. It doesn't smell.
And you can stream the thing too, right?
And it's live streaming, yeah. And I still love singing and playing guitar. I have a bass player and rear projection, and I'm doing things. I have a swing that comes down out of the ceiling on a rope.
What do you do with that?
I sit on it and swing.
Okay, sorry.
What would you do with the
I guess
swing?
that's a very good point. I'm sorry.
I have a frame. I said, I'd like to frame this next number a little differently, and a frame comes down.
Very good.
I'm in a frame. Yeah. I'm doing a balloon drop at the. I'm closing the show.
You are?
Yes.
Don't give it away. Okay, give it away.
Well. Okay. Ernest Thompson, who wrote On Golden Pond, wrote my opening number, which is called Live Free or Die.
Mm-hmm. Good for New Hampshire.
Yeah,
exactly.
I can read license plates.
Yeah.
And the closing number is also Ernest, called Let's Keep the Party Going.
Yeah.
When he first gave me this song, I didn't. Here's the opening lyric. Most of my friends are already dead.
That's great.
I'm not liking the trend. Was it something I said? All my ex-wives are happier now. Oh, they're loving their lives. It's a miracle how moments like this, nostalgia sets in. I start making lists of each loss and each win. I've fallen so fast, I've soared to the sky. I know nothing lasts, so I bothered to lie. Boom, boom, boom. I want to keep this party going. I want to raise so it becomes a closer.
I would applaud that if I were you.
Yeah, that was great. That was
beautiful rendition of something or other.
Instead of talking about all the things you did wrong and apologizing for it, just keep the party going, and that's where we do the balloon drop.
Okay, what's the website for this joint if people want to get tickets, either streaming or in person?
I say johndavidson.com because people can remember that.
That's your name.
But it's also Club Sandwich Live, right?
Okay.
ClubSandwichLive.com. That's how you do tickets.
Understand that.
This morning when Jim and I were preparing, we saw you as one of the subs for Johnny Carson. You were on
Excuse me, one of the subs. He's the most common sub in the history. No. Yes.
If I was that common, why didn't I get the chair?
You were the most common.
I thought maybe there was a chance I would, but no. Jay Leno got the chair, and it was great. And I'm not a perfect. I never did figure out why I'm there. I do a lot of jokes in my show.
You do.
But I would sing 2 songs at the beginning of the thing. And it really should be a comedian. It should be, Cosby did it a lot. Jay Leno did it a lot. It should be a funny guy.
Well,
a comedian.
But you were a terrific interviewer. I mean, we interview for a living. It's not easy when you have an interviewee like we saw this morning. Ringo Starr, the famous Beatle, came on your show. It was a little tough. He wasn't very communicative.
Have trouble. He was trouble.
He was trouble. Yeah. And then he had one of the Bee Gees next to him. I couldn't tell. Was that the youngest? Was that the youngest Bee Gee? I think it was.
Yeah, wasn't it Andy?
I think the youngest one who was adorable.
Cute young guy.
And was that Ringo Starr's wife, Barbara Bach, that was with him? Do you remember?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
did they meet at the Tonight Show? Because it didn't seem like they were already married.
That wasn't the Tonight Show.
No.
That was a different show.
That was my talk. That was my talk show.
Yeah.
The Andy Gibb I had on my talk show, but on the Tonight Show, no.
Some beautiful
I
woman
had trouble with Ringo on my talk show.
Yeah.
I swear he was either smoking something.
He was drunk.
Or he was drunk. He
Yeah,
was
he was
really
drunk.
drunk.
He was
and he had a Polaroid camera, and he was
Yes.
taking people's
I thought that
picture.
was the Tonight
and he
Show,
was saying,
sorry.
"I'm a butterfly. I'm a butterfly." And I wasn't. It was my first year of doing it. See,
But you did it very well,
No,
though.
I
It is
didn't.
really, yes, you did.
No,
because
you
it's
didn't
really-
see when I walked off the set. I was a prima donna. I said, I don't want to do a talk show to someone who's saying he's a butterfly. I just walked off the set. And so you didn't see that because we had to edit it because there was no talking to this. I should have handled it better.
No, that's
we
BS.
thought it was great.
saw
We thought it was great.
We
It's
have a
really
little
hard to
sound
do.
from this. I don't know if it's going to play on the radio, but here you are. Ringo's talking about a childhood illness. He was in the hospital for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And taking what is now known, as you said, a
Yes,
selfie with
yes.
Barbara Bach. Was his wife then or wasn't his wife then?
I think it was his wife.
Whatever.
They were in Caveman together.
While he's supposed to be promoting the movie Caveman, here's the discussion.
Oh, I knitted,
Did you?
made straw trays.
Did you?
I think I should have a photo with you after that.
I hope so. Straw trays. That's no relation to straw dogs.
We used to say cheese.
Cheese?
Ringo, obviously this is not going to be your regular interview.
That was John at the end making a contribution
I was
to the
not
discussion.
And Mike Douglas, we were friends at the time, and his producers were negotiating with him, and they hired somebody else. They hired me to take over the Mike Douglas show, their team. And
Will you be offended if I say Mike Douglas was deadly dull? He's a friend of yours, I assume, or was, right?
He was right for television. There's something low-key that works on television. Johnny Carson was good for
genius.
Yeah.
Did you ever?
I was too much, I think, for that.
Why are you so self-deprecating?
No,
What
I'm
is
just saying,
wrong with you?
The reality of the type of television talk show host, it takes somebody like a Mike Douglas. He was on for 20 years.
I don't care if he was on for 40 years. He
okay.
was dull.
No, but that's
something. That
So
is-
I want to know, now most of us, if Elvis Presley had communicated to us that he wanted us to come over for a nice little evening at
might come, yeah,
Graceland,
that's a good point.
and I read this Jeff Edger's
Where
piece.
do you find this
I
stuff?
read
It's in
your
the
whole life
Washington
story.
Post.
You dated Karen Carpenter, and you hung out with Mama Cass, and all these things, and Kenny Rogers and stuff. But the one that killed me more than any of them was Elvis Presley had his buddy Red West call to invite you over to Graceland.
I was
and
playing
you
Memphis.
Said,
What?
no.
I did.
What's that about?
Because it scared me. I was playing the Hilton Hotel in Memphis, which is like a mile away from Graceland, and Red West, his guy, said, "Would you like to come over and play some racquetball and hang out with Elvis?" And I just kind of said, "I can't even speak to." On Hollywood Squares, I was the second host of Squares. Peter Marshall was the first.
Yeah.
We have Burt Reynolds on, and Burt Reynolds says to me, "You know, Johnny, I know you have a boat there. I love boating. I'd like to come out on your boat." And I said, "Bert," I called him Bert, "let me be honest with you. A weekend with you on my boat would be the most unrelaxed, it would be the most tension time. I see you as a legend. I do." Burt Reynolds is really cool. He's a cool guy.
Well, a very cool guy.
I am not cool. And I just didn't know how I could even be around. I've had that trouble with interviewing famous people.
Really?
I had Betty Davis and Jane Fonda and big people on the show, and I really have trouble talking to them. I have no trouble with you guys.
Well,
that doesn't say
we're not
very
exactly
much, does it?
famous. That's maybe the difference.
Speak for yourself.
Okay,
So I didn't go to Elvis. Yeah,
You didn't go
I
to
turned him
Elvis.
down.
You regret that?
I wish. Yes, I do. Of course I do. I wish I had.
I wish you had.
But I would feel I am not. I'm not in his league. That terrible expression. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
I don't know.
You're 81. Did you know that, by the way?
I didn't bring that up.
No, I
again.
just want to be clear.
We interview people out of our league all the time.
I was very shy as a kid, and I think I would have been more successful in show business if I had hung out more with winners.
Excuse me, what are you talking about?
I've had a great career.
What are you
It's been
talking
great.
about? You hosted the Tonight Show 90 times. Excuse
Hollywood
me, I'm not done.
Squares?
You had your own show.
Yes.
You had Hollywood Squares. What's Gigi from Bridget? What's that? The woman you did the
Sally Field.
So you did a thing with Sally Field.
Sally
You had a
Field.
show.
Yeah.
I mean, you did a million things. You've
Yeah.
done plays, musicals all over the country.
And now I'm,
Julie
I'm
Andrews.
singing in a barn
George
in
Carlin.
Sandwich,
Sandwich,
New Hampshire.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Thank
okay.
you.
I want to know because so many of us of a certain age, we grew up, go
You're
to
not
prom.
81.
I'm not 81.
she's not.
Thank you. Not
Of
yet.
a certain
Not yet.
age.
No, what grew up listening to the Carpenters.
Yeah.
Close to you, it was the last dance,
Yeah.
all the junior
Yeah.
high school, the prom, the college
Yeah.
dances and stuff. So what was Karen Carpenter like?
Well, shyer than I.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, a very, boy, she, Karen and Richard, she's gone now, but
Yeah, she
were
is.
very socially awkward, I would
Is
say.
that right?
Yeah, that's what they love being in the studio and making those incredible records. And she, oh, what a voice!
What a voice!
But she was not like you. I mean, she couldn't do what you're doing here.
She was shy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
She started as a drummer, behind her drums, and they had to.
I forgot about that.
They had to
That's
pull her from behind her drums to get her out in front. She was
With that gorgeous voice.
Yeah, and a very low self-esteem thing. She went through the, what is it called when you bulimic?
Yes,
she
yes,
was-
yes.
Which isn't that low self-esteem? You just can't get thin enough, she basically starved herself.
Yeah, she passed away from anorexia, yeah.
Anorexia,
Which was
yeah.
absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
Can we get
Okay.
back to a happier thing? Why you do? I mean, you're 81. You're 81. Why you do this thing? I can't believe we haven't been there yet. We're definitely coming this summer.
You came to see me in Natick.
Yes, indeed.
With a lady that you said was
We
your
love
wife.
that Tecan. That was correct,
what he
actually.
said,
It was true
anyway.
then and now.
Tecan.
So Tecan, which is a fabulous little venue in Natick, where they don't have sofas and things like that. Why are you doing this?
I didn't know what to do with myself in my 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
I was in my second marriage, and my wife didn't want to do Club Sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
And we were not doing well. We're now separated. I live alone. I've tried marriage twice, and I've realized that I don't do well. I'm not a good married thing.
Mm-hmm.
I screwed it up twice. And I live on a boat in Mexico with my son in La Paz, Mexico, 42-foot trawler.
Nice, nice.
In the winter, not in the winter. But I still love singing with my guitar. I like to make my face vibrate, and I like the coordination with that. I have a bass player that I play with. This has been a dream of mine to have my own club where I could perform. And in all honesty, because I've been a game show host and so many things, my career has been very screwed up. People say, well, what is he? Is he a game show host, or is he a singer, or is he a comedian? I do a lot of jokes
You're
on
a
the show.
fabulous entertainer. Who's
I'm
done a
an
million different things.
Entertainer, that's right.
I'm old school entertainer
You
because I sing and do jokes, and most people are just a singer or a comedian. I put those together, but I think it's my passion. I think you have to have a passion, a reason for shaving in the morning.
You do? Well, you did shave this morning, it looks like.
Yes, I did.
By the way, can you play, speaking of playing and your
we're gonna
passion
hear
for playing, well,
something.
how about now? What are you going to play? And then come back and
I'm
talk
going
to
to
us for
play
a
a
minute.
song that talks about, see, how did you know? This song sets it up so well. I'm going to sing a Cody Johnson song called Till You Can't.
Till You Can't.
Which talks about, if you've got a dream, chase it. Sing in a barn in New Hampshire. If you've got a chance, take it while you've got a chance.
I like that.
So many people put it off, and then it's too late. You can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what this song, Cody Johnson's song, that's what it's all about. I'm going over to the microphone now.
Till You Can't, right? John
Yes.
Davidson is going to perform this Cody Johnson song. Then he'll rejoin us, talk for a couple more minutes. Check out Club Sandwich. They've got, he couldn't find the list, but it's everybody from Ellis Paul to Patty Larkin later in the year.
Who's fantastically talented.
You look down this list, this is really a very small venue, sitting on couches. Jim Queskin from the Queskin Jug Band. It's really incredible. Here he is, one of our favorites, the great John Davidson.
Okay. Well, you can tell your old man you'd rather go big mouth fishing some other time. Just got too much on your plate to cut bait and cast a line. You can always put a rain check in his hand. Till you can't. You can keep putting off forever with that girl whose heart you hold, saying that you'll ask one day further on down the road. You can always put a ring upon her hand. Till you can't. If you got a chance, take it. Take it while you got a chance. If you got a dream, chase it, 'cause a dream won't chase you back. If you're gonna love somebody, love them as long and as strong and as close as you can. Till you can. I forgot the next word. Just a minute, I'll get it. There's a box of greasy parts sitting in the trunk of that 65, waiting on you and your granddad to bring it back to life. You can always get around to fixing up that old Pontiac. Till you can't. If you got a chance, take it. Take it while you got a chance. If you got a dream, chase it, 'cause a dream won't chase you back. If you're gonna love somebody, love them as long and as strong and as close as you can. Till you can't. Take that phone call from your mama. Just talk away. You'll never know how bad you wanna. Till you can't someday. Don't put off till tomorrow, 'cause tomorrow may never show. Say your sorries, your I love you, 'cause man, you never know. If you got a chance, take it. Take it while you got a chance. If you got a dream, chase it, 'cause a dream won't chase you back. If you're gonna love somebody, love them as long and as strong and as close as you can. Till you can.
John Davidson. Come on back over, John.
That was great.
That was fabulous.
I'm inspired now. I have to start dreaming big and taking
So you
chances.
can't, right?
That's right, so you can't.
Put that
You
baby
can't.
back
Who
on
wrote
there.
that song?
Johnson.
Cody Johnson. Okay, I'm
Johnson.
going to write that down. And it's called Till You Can't.
Till you can't.
Yeah.
Well, you
that's a good
can.
one.
Let me tell you. You really, you can.
But it's fun, right? Isn't that part the reason you do it? Because it's really fun. I mean, you have got 44 people there. You can sing and make everybody happy and have a good time.
Yeah, I write a lot of, I guess comedy songs. I thought at my age, I can't play over here, kind of, because it won't pick up the guitar, right?
Can he play over here or not? You can give it a go.
Yeah.
I think he'll pick up
I
enough
can hear
there.
it.
Yeah.
I can hear it.
Yeah. I thought at my age, which is what?
81, I'm told, yes.
I thought that I would have all the answers.
That's
I
right.
thought, I've got more questions than answers.
Ah.
And I wrote a song about that. It's
We're
called
ready.
Why. Down through the ages, wise men and sages, searching for knowledge, they plunder. So I've roamed and I've combed through the great ancient tomes. Still late at night, I wonder, why do men have nipples? How come Tarzan never had a beard? Why do bars have parking lots if I can't drink and drive? Am I the only one who finds it weird? Why did Adam and Eve need navels? Think about it.
We're thinking.
If your doctor's practicing, is he practicing on you? Why wash my bath towels? I'm clean when I use them. What are training bras? Training them to do. Why did kamikazes wear helmets? Why is a boxing ring square? How will I know when my invisible ink runs out? Why isn't there mouse-flavored cat food in stores everywhere? Why are there Braille dots on drive-up ATMs?
It's true. I've seen them. I've seen them.
Is the alphabet in that order just because of the song? Why does Superman wear his underpants on the outside? And why have you let this song go on this long?
Why by John.
Why?
You know what I worry about? You have to put that back on, the headset, because that's where
Let's
the
take
mic
his
is.
guitar off first.
You know what I worry about whenever we are lucky enough to talk to you on radio or television? You are such a good guy. I worry that you're not really like this in real life. Is that possible?
Of course I'm not.
You're not.
My
are you
mother-
like an a-hole, or what are you like
Yes,
in real life?
I can be. Of
You
course
can
I
be.
can be. Oh, my goodness.
Very sad.
Yeah.
My dad was a Baptist preacher. My mother was a Baptist minister's wife who lived in a bubble. And she had 4 sons. And she said that we were good boys and that we were perfect. She really believed this.
And?
I've spent my life trying to prove her wrong. And that's what preachers' kids do.
Speaking of Baptists, aren't you an atheist?
I'm an atheist. I'm not religious at all.
Did you talk about that when you were huge and you were like America's clean-cut, beautiful, blue-eyed boy? Did you ever talk about this, or did you sort of hide it?
Not so much.
I didn't think so.
No. And this is another thing that my mother told me. She said, just don't bring it up. And I said, well, what is that? My first major was philosophy. I was going to go to seminary. I was thinking of becoming a Baptist preacher like my dad, because I saw my dad up there and I thought, boy, people really respect him, and he's changed people. My dad changed a lot of people's lives, and I want to be in that position up there speaking in the pulpit. I didn't want to do funerals. I didn't want to go to hospitals and visit sick people, But and that's why I realized I should be in theater arts, and I changed my major. But I have not brought that up very much. And,
So what happened, though? What happened? Minister's sons. So it's just, and wanted to go to seminary. You just
my brothers and I, we're all secular. We're just
is that
not
right?
really.
So Dad didn't. It wasn't a apple falling far from the tree kind of deal
No,
there at all.
I respected him very much, and my mom, and we were the preacher's sons. At church, people would walk up and say, well, you must be the preacher's son. You look so clean. Yes, I am the preacher's son. You must be the preacher's son. Oh, is that you standing next to your dad? I said, Mom, I have no name. I'm just the preacher's son. She said, John Hamilton Davidson, you have a name. You're John Hamilton Davidson. Next Sunday, a nice grandma walked up and said, aren't you the preacher's son? I said, no, Mommy says I'm not.
Okay, so Club Sandwich in Sandwich, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
You do Fridays and Saturdays, guest performers, and the list is fabulous. You find it on the website. On Thursday nights. When does this open? When does this start? June 2nd or
June 2nd.
June 2nd.
Yeah. And of course, how many of you have been to Sandwich, New Hampshire? Though we have a whole audience here.
Oh,
See,
huge numbers
not very
of
many.
people. Nobody.
It's one of those.
One woman over there.
It's a Norman Rockwell perfect little town.
How far is it from here?
I don't know, an hour and 45 minutes, something like that.
That's not bad.
There are places you can stay overnight, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a very peaceful, little, wonderful place. And now they have this crazy club in the middle of it.
Club Sandwich.
Where you can see me, or you can see John Brunt. Karen Morgan's very funny. Have you had her on, Karen Morgan?
No,
She's a
we will,
wonderful comedian. Ball in the House is an a cappella group. Aztec Two-Step. Zoe Lewis is great. Rough and Tumble, Rupert Waits. Vance Gilbert is coming up soon. Ellis Paul is sold out. Peter Mulvey. An Evening with John Stetson, he's a mentalist. An Everly set. These two guys, Sean and Jack, do all Everly Brothers. Wake up, little Susie, wake up. Do you sing it all, Jim?
No, I do not. That's it. John Davidson, we are thrilled to see you every time you're
thanks for having me.
Uplifting here.
Club Sandwich in Sandwich, New Hampshire, the great and wonderful John Davidson.
You're
Great to see
so
you, John.
Nice to see.
You
Thank
were
you so much.
nice.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, we have been speaking and listening to the great songs and great comedy of John Davidson, TV presenter, performer, entertainer. For info on tickets to get up there to New Hampshire, to John Davidson's Club Sandwich in Sandwich, New Hampshire, you go to johndavidson.com. That's johndavidson.com. Stay with us for another break. After this break, I should say, we've got another John coming. Dorchester's own John King is here with us to talk about the latest out of D.C. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
If you have an old vehicle collecting dust in your driveway, then let GBH take it off your hands. We'll recycle your old car or truck and safely take care of the pickup. By donating your vehicle, you're helping us to provide you with the journalistic excellence that you trust. So if your old car is cluttering up the driveway, let GBH take the wheel. To learn more about our vehicle donation program, check out gbh.org/vehicle donation.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and Walden Local Meat, partnering with local farmers in the Northeast. Walden Local Meat offers 100% grass-fed and pasture-raised meat delivered to your door. Learn more at waldenlocalmeat.com. And Mystic Seaport Museum, presenting Oceanus, a breathtaking new exhibit of original work from renowned contemporary artist Alexis Rockman, opening Memorial Day weekend. Information at mysticseaport.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan. Governor Healy will be with us for Ask the Governor this Friday at the library 1 to 2. Before we continue, I just want to recognize somebody who is the chair of the board of our host, the Boston Public Library. Please say hello to Priscilla Douglas. Priscilla, it's great to have you here. Thanks so much. The library is so wonderful to us. It's great to see you. Joining us on Zoom is CNN's chief national correspondent, John King, host of Inside Politics weekdays at noon, soon heading for a new reporting project in the months to come. John King, it's great to see you.
Boy, this is a very tough act to follow. I'm not very funny. I can't sing, and I can't dance. But here I am.
Yeah, well John Davidson is a great
actually.
treat. We were thrilled to be able to talk to him, listen to him, because he's a hugely talented guy. But let's get back down to the serious news of the world. Our second John King. I'm going to play a little sound from what former President Donald Trump had to say at the CNN town hall you guys had when asked about the verdict, which had just happened, I believe, the day before the town hall. The verdict which found him liable of sexual abuse against E. Jean Carroll, as well as defaming her. Here it is.
I have no idea who the hell. She's a whack job. What kind of a woman meets somebody and brings them up, and within minutes you're playing hanky-panky in a dressing room, okay? I don't know if she was married then or not.
So he has, I would argue, defamed her yet again the day after he was found guilty of doing the same thing, or liable, I should say, of doing the same thing. Now, E. Jean Carroll is seeking more damages because of these remarks. What do you make of it?
It's an interesting legal argument, but I just had a conversation about it on my program, and one of our great lawyers who comes in and helps us every now and then, Shan Wu, says that she, we'll see what happens, but he believes she has standing to at least make the case, making the point that the jury found him liable for defaming her, and then he went on and did it again. And it's a complicated suit, and there are some unresolved parts of it that were still pending, and essentially she's going back in and saying, he didn't learn his lesson, and I want more damages.
I have to say, I'd go further than him. I think she's got a pretty damn good case, even though I'm not the lawyer that he is. John, debt ceiling is the talk of the nation, even though I've said this before, I'm not sure the average person understands the potential severity of a default, which arguably could be a week and a few days away. I watch, maybe this is wishful thinking on my part, but I watched like yesterday's early evening meeting between Speaker McCarthy and President Biden, and I get the sense that they're closer than we're being told, but they have to engage in performance art for their constituents until they make a deal at the last minute. Is that a wild, irresponsible conclusion or no?
No, I don't think it's wild or irresponsible. I think it is one of the plausible theories in front of us. And I do think it is important, and it is a good thing, that both the Republican speaker and the Democratic president are complimenting the other person's teams, saying the negotiations are serious and they're productive and there are professional adults in the room. And they both say they don't want a default. But, and this is where it gets into the half empty, half full, you have just this morning, the speaker telling House Republicans in private they're nowhere close, then publicly coming out of that meeting and saying the White House is continuing to say, number one, that it wants to freeze spending, not cut spending, and the Republicans want to cut spending. The speaker also says the president's now trying to bring some Medicare changes into it. And one of the things the White House has discussed is that you can raise revenues if you allow the expansion of the government being able to negotiate prescription drugs under Medicare. That actually brings money in. I don't want to overwonk the audience out here on budget math. But there's a big debate. The White House wants to freeze spending. Republicans want to cut it. Republicans say they want to increase defense spending and veteran spending, even as they cut other discretionary spending. Well, the White House says, well, then that means, health care. That means food stamps. That means, homeless money. And progressives are telling the president, don't you dare. So I think you're right, Jim, that the basic dynamics are good in that they want a deal. But I would not get too far out over your skis in thinking that they can make the necessary compromises here. Look, if they are going to get a deal, the speaker's going to have problems on his right, and the president's going to have problems on his left, and they're going to have to put together 218, 219 votes in the middle. But I don't think we're anywhere close.
Well, the president, Biden, has theorized that there may be some Republicans who want a default because then Biden will get blamed for it and it will hurt him in the election. I mean, that doesn't seem as crazy as it sounds, to me anyway.
I don't think it's crazy at all in the fact that that's how they think, right? We had this conversation for years. I remember after the Tea Party elections back in 2010 and 2014, 2012 and 2014, people were saying well, why do these guys keep voting no? Well, they campaigned on voting no, and they kept doing what they were going to do. You have a number of Republicans who are saying they don't believe Janet Yellen. They don't believe Wall Street. They don't believe all these CEOs who say that the government will actually start running out of money on June 1st. They kind of think that, there's some money stuffed in a mattress or under a shelf somewhere and that the government can get by. So there are some people who just don't believe June 1st. And then to your point, you can add into that, there's some duplication here, but there's also another group of people who say, if our only way for leverage is to have days or, several days or a week or so of economic calamity, so what? We don't think it'll be as bad as everybody says it is. And that, again, when you're Speaker McCarthy and you only have a few votes to spare, if you're trying to get a majority of Republicans on board for this, or at least close to that majority, you have to listen to those voices, even if you think they're not factually correct.
John King, we started the discussion with the amendment of pending litigation by E. Jean Carroll against Donald Trump to include charges, well, they're not charges, but allegations around what he said on the CNN town hall. Staying on Trump, the lead story on Politico yesterday or this morning, I found really fascinating. In the argument, or the case made in the story is that Republican leaders are having a real hard time convincing the highest quality, most likely to win candidates in states where there's Senate seats or House seats to run because there's so much hesitancy to run on the same ballot as Donald Trump and how dangerous that can be for your career. How seriously do the Republican leaders take that threat that the best candidates won't run?
Well, look at governor's races and Senate races. I'm in Washington, so I'll focus on the Senate races right here. Just look at past history, right? Mitch McConnell thinks he should still be majority leader. and that they lost seats in 2022 and they lost some seats they could have won in 2020 because you had either the Trump dynamic, he's so unpopular in a state that there's down ballot impact on other Republicans, or Trump gets involved in a primary and endorses a candidate who then wins the primary and can't win the general election. So we just had this in Pennsylvania. John Fetterman, the Democrat, is the senator. Remember back in the primary, Dave McCormick, a finance guy, he was a primary candidate, but Trump went for Dr. Oz, and then Dr. Oz lost. Well, the Republicans are trying to get Dave McCormick to run again. Number one, they think he's a more mainstream Republican candidate. Number two, he's also a wealthy candidate who can supplement campaign fundraising with some of his own money. And they think he's the best candidate to go up against Senator Casey next year. He still has a hangover from 2022, right? He's like, well, if I do this, is Trump going to endorse somebody to my right again? I don't know if right-left applies anymore, but is there going to be a Trumpy candidate to get in? And so you're reluctant, right, to put your pride and your ego and your money on the table if you think there's some outside force that you cannot contain or control, meaning Donald Trump, who's going to come in and mess it up for you. It's a real factor. And, Mitch McConnell, again, you look at the 2024 map, Republicans should be very competitive. Republicans should be, it's not an unsafe bet. I'm not saying it turns out this way, but it's not an unsafe bet that Republicans could take back the Senate. But they also have recent history in their minds, and it frustrates them to an enormous degree.
Well, speaking of taking back the Senate, I'll quote from the New York Times story by Jonathan Weisman today. Tim Scott, the first black Republican elected to the Senate from the South, he's from South Carolina since Reconstruction, has announced his campaign for president. And as the Times put it, he is trying to bring a positive, aspirational message to the Republican field, running as an alternative to the former president, Donald Trump's less positive message. He's got a lot of money. I think I read $22 million he's got from his Senate campaign fundraising. So what happens with Tim Scott?
I think Senator Scott, Governor Haley to a lesser degree, maybe, or an equal degree. People out there might disagree with me. I think this is a really interesting test of who's left, who votes in Republican primaries in 2024 after Donald Trump's now 6 years of impact on the party, 8 years of impact on the party, you could argue, if you go back to go back as far as 2015 when he started running. And so who are those voters? Tim Scott is a very conservative senator. And so, anti-abortion, wants strict spending limits, would take Medicare and Social Security and have conversations about maybe trimming those programs or at least reforming them in ways that progressives would not like. But he does it with a smile, and he does have a very compelling biography. And he wants to have, it's a sort of a George Bush version of compassionate conservatism, where you can say things that some people might not agree with on policy, but they don't find you threatening. So if they agree with you over here, they're willing to accept the parts they don't like because they don't find you a threatening person. Can you sell that in a Republican Party that has become all about Donald Trump's grievances? Grievances against immigrants, grievances against math in elections, grievances about things real and perceived. Can you sell that? And I think it's a fascinating test case. If you went back to pre-Trump, Tim Scott would be an interesting candidate you'd want to watch. I guess you'd noted an African-American senator running in a Republican primary. It would be interesting. I'm skeptical that positive conservatism has as big of a base within the Republican Party primary electorate than it used to, but that's why it's a great laboratory.
But isn't the proof that he has virtually no chance the fact that Donald Trump said nice things about him yesterday? I mean, the guy he trashes, I would argue, is the guy he fears most, Ron DeSantis, and he did nothing. Well, he doesn't tweet, but he truth socialed only positive things about Tim Scott after his announcement.
Yeah, as I always say, Jim, this is very telling that Donald Trump refuses to acknowledge election math, meaning counting votes when he loses, but he gets math actually pretty well. The proof, when he sees if you have a crowded field, then Donald Trump can get 25% here, 29% there, 31% there, and continue to win all the delegates like he did in 2016. So he does not see Senator Scott as a threat. You're absolutely right. Let's have the conversation 3 months from now, see if Scott can turn things around. But at the moment, Trump sees DeSantis as his biggest threat. As Marjorie noted, Tim Scott has $20 million or more. He also has some rich Larry Ellison, one of them a software guy, backers who are going to help him raise a lot of money. But Trump and DeSantis have over $100 million. Trump sees DeSantis as the threat, and he wants the more the merrier because he thinks it helps him.
John King, one of the scariest things about President Trump's tenure was his really over-the-top use of the government to go after his political enemies. One of them, of course, was Hillary Clinton. Remember on the campaign trail, he and his followers were chanting, "Lock her up, lock her up." I guess we did know that he spent a lot of time when he was the president pressuring both the FBI and the Justice Department to go after her. I didn't know that the investigation stretched long past the FBI and prosecutors knew it was a dead end. But anyway, they have stopped the investigation of Hillary Clinton's foundation with no charges or no allegations of wrongdoing. I don't know if this is a big deal or it isn't a big deal, but it struck me as a big deal.
Well, the fact that it's over is a big deal in the sense that, look, I think, I have no issue with scrutiny of all of these political foundations or foundations connected to politics. Are they following the rules? What do we know about their donors? What's required by law? I think journalists should also look at it for the places where, the Clinton Foundation, for example, has taken money from some foreign governments that people say, oh, do you really want to be doing that? That's all fair game. But in terms of alleging criminal conduct, alleging like Trump did that this was all like a bribery scheme or pay-to-play scheme or anything like that, well, there's zero proof of that. I would also note that when the Durham report came out last week, we saw that Hillary Clinton was interviewed as part of that. And a lot of people said, why did she sit down with him? And her lawyer said she wanted to sit down with him because she wanted to sit down with John Durham and answer any questions about, the Trump argument is that the Clinton campaign planted the Russia story in the FBI and then pressured the FBI to investigate Trump. And the Durham report, even though it raises concerns about the FBI process, also makes crystal clear they had started this investigation well before the so-called Steele dossier, which the Clinton campaign did have some involvement in financing. The investigation started well before that came along. And so there's Hillary Clinton in the news again. I guess 2016, Marjorie, is the campaign that will never end.
Yeah.
So, John, if we can talk to Dorchester, John, for the last minute here. So there have been 149 basketball teams that have been down 3-0 in playoff series, and 149 out of the 149 have lost the series. Is that about to change starting tonight, John King?
I hope so, Jim. But if you watch the same games I have watched, especially Game 3, you have seen no evidence that that's going to happen. Remember the old Gene Hackman movie, Keanu Reeves' Replacements? It was about the football strike back in the day. Mm-hmm. And at halftime, Gene Hackman's the coach, and they say, what do you need? And he says he needs heart. And Keanu Reeves comes off his boats and plays the second half. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie. It's a great, fun, old movie. The Celtics, I'm sorry, they got a great roster. They had no heart in these 3 games. None.
Yeah.
Well, that's a ringing endorsement.
I
John
know.
King.
It's very depressing.
Well, on to next year. Hey, John, it's great to see you. Be well. Talk to you next week. Thanks so much.
Thank you, John. Great to talk to you.
John King.
John King, we've been speaking with John King. He is CNN's chief national correspondent, the host of Inside Politics, which you can catch every weekday at noon on CNN. Coming up, we're opening the lines, the next installment of our series on appropriate office attire, and a chance, once again, to make fun of Jim Browdy. This week, we're tackling a new trend, those dress sneakers that are quickly replacing shoes and loafers as the must-have footwear for out-of-touch corporate types. They even wore them to the White House.
Oval Office.
And it got everybody in bees in their bonnet about that. We're going to open the lines to get your thoughts in just a moment on where you can wear sneakers. Can you wear them with suits? Can you wear them to weddings?
Yes,
Can you wear them to the Academy Awards?
Yes,
877.
We're going down ballot, counting up our mayors, fishing for salmon, and hanging with the Ryans. We're traveling across the country with takeaway producer Ryan Wild. All that, and we revisit the story of Mason, Tennessee. I'm Melissa Harris Perry, and that's next time on The Takeaway from WNYC and PRX.
This afternoon at 2, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you and United Healthcare, providing health plan coverage options for New England businesses and their employees. You can learn more at uhc.com. That's uhc.com. And Mitsubishi Electric, providing homeowners access to heating and cooling solutions with electric heat pump systems that can also achieve their sustainability goals. Learn more at mitsubishicomfort.com/NPR.
An hour of Ask the Governor, the last hour of Friday's show, 1 to 2. Last week we all came to a near consensus that it was perfectly acceptable for me and others to wear shorts, for me and others to wear shorts in the office. Cargo, thank you. Thank you very much.
I don't know that there was a consensus.
Well,
Jim.
I think there was.
Okay.
Cargo shorts even, as long as I wasn't stuffing the pockets.
Yep.
Well, there's a new debate going on around footwear in the workplace or even in places like the Oval Office, where recently, I assume you've seen the photo, Speaker McCarthy, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and Senate Minority Leader of the United States, Mitch McConnell, were all photographed, Marjorie, wearing what are called hybrid dress sneakers while meeting with President Biden. So what's acceptable footwear, particularly in corporate spaces in the hall of Congress or the White House, where once there might have been a classy, respectable leather loafer or dress show, now comes the, some might argue, oxymoronic, and some might also argue plain moronic, a dress sneaker, or a plain old sneaker like I'm wearing today. The number is 877-301-8970. Where do you stand on the dress sneaker or the plain old sneaker in places where it would not have been acceptable nigh just a couple of years ago? 877-301-8970. So what's your position,
Well, they're
Marjorie?
described in this story as the dreaded hybrid sneakers, where it looks like the regular shoe on the up part of the shoe, and then the sole is white, and it looks like a sneaker. It looks really
What
terrible.
were you doing a couple of Sunday nights ago in the library, in the hotel right around the corner?
In the hotel right around the corner?
Yeah, 2 Sunday nights ago.
I was at that was at the Literary Lights dinner.
Correct. And
Yes.
we presented one of the honorees.
Yep.
And
you wore sneakers.
It was a tux.
It was horrible.
It was a black tie event. And I not only wore sneakers, I was complimented by many, many people.
No, Jim.
For the look of my sneakers.
You were not. They were like pink and yellow. They weren't even
They were
black
not pink and yellow. They were
sneakers or navy
multicolored.
sneakers. They were multicolored sneakers. Listen, people, when they asked about your sneakers,
What'd they say to you?
They're saying, what is Jim Brownie doing in a pair of sneakers at a black tie event? It was very
my
embarrassing.
motto is, can I tell you what my motto is?
You were doing a Robert Kraft imitation.
Exactly. As goes Mr. Kraft, so goes America.
Yeah.
Bob Kraft, when he became 90 or whatever he is, started wearing sneakers with suits. And that little pink shirt thing with a white collar and little pocket square. And if Kraft can do it, then I think the rest of us can.
Well, apparently a lot of people are doing it. It's not just Robert Kraft. Sally Field, I didn't know this, and she wore sneakers to this Vanity Fair Oscar party. Seth Rogen apparently wears
the Oval Office.
Sneakers and suits.
Oval Office. 3 of the 5 men in the Oval Office.
They look ridiculous.
No, they don't.
I like Hakeem Jeffries, but not only does he have these horrible hybrid shoes on, but he's got these multicolored socks. He and Kevin McCarthy, they agree on multicolored socks. I've seen all these pictures of Kevin McCarthy with these,
3 of them.
blinding
3
colored
of them.
socks.
3 of them. Hakeem Jeffries, Mitch McConnell, and Kevin
I would not
McCarthy.
go to Mitch McConnell for style.
You don't think so?
No, I don't
He's
think
looking
so.
pretty good, don't you think?
But there's a lot of people. No, I would say he
No?
hasn't looked good for quite. I'm not sure if he ever looked good, Jim.
Okay, that's
actually,
not nice.
Actually, that's one of his problems.
What is his problem?
That he really resents the fact that he's not a handsome man.
That's not nice.
Well, it's true.
It's not nice.
He's kind of obsessed with that.
You know
whole
what
thing.
look looks really good on him? The sneaker look looks really good on
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell.
Well,
Spices
I
up
don't
the whole
think so.
deal.
And I think the hybrid thing is really horrible. But in any case, 877-301-8970.
Do you remember not too long ago you would not wear jeans to work on
I
the
know.
radio?
The pandemic
What happened
changed
to that?
Pandemic.
Okay,
Pandemic
so
changed that.
I've gone a little more cash myself.
Well, Jim, I mean, I don't mean to be unkind, but
go ahead.
The sneakers are just. They're just
By the
not-
way,
they're
if
just not
anybody
doing it,
was
Jim.
at the Literary Lights dinner
You
and
get the
is
black
listening,
ones on today,
then I
right?
have black ones
You
today.
don't have it multicolored.
877-301-8970. If you happen to see the sneakers, the Literary Lights dinner, we'd love you to weigh in.
I've been informed that tie shoes are uncomfortable. I did not know that. The traditional male tie shoes, I
No,
guess.
they're not.
Some people have said they're
regular shoes.
uncomfortable. Jamie said that they're
Well, I
uncomfortable.
mean, look at him.
He
He's
has
got
tie
hard
shoes on
shoes on.
today.
It's a throwback.
And people say that's uncomfortable. I didn't know that. I thought women were the ones that had the problems with the really high shoes. I have no idea how women wear 4-inch heels. I mean, Nancy Pelosi, she wore 4-inch heels like well into her 80s.
The head of Literary Lights said, I cannot believe all the other people at this event didn't have the courage and foresight, the fashion foresight that you did, Jim.
Okay,
That was
Jim,
exactly
let me
what
tell you,
he or
they're
she
horrible.
or whoever
They're
the chair
horrible.
was said to me.
Rebecca-
877-301-8970.
Rebecca from Reading, thank you for calling.
Hey there.
Hey, how are you?
I think we're good.
Okay. So I think I told you last week that my father refers to you as Jim the Red.
Oh, I remember
Yes,
that very
yes.
fondly,
So-
Rebecca.
so-
Yes.
Yes. So I against all his politics, wanted to vote down the ticket, a totally Democratic,
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be a Trumper. I don't want to.
Got it.
I want to be, I could not vote for Diana DiZoglio because she showed up on, I don't know if it was your show or one of the Sunday morning shows, wearing sneakers.
She did?
So wait a second. Chris Dempsey, this is the primary or the final? Is this the primary or the final?
It was the final. No.
Whatever it was. So Diana DiZoglio, who is now the auditor, did not get your vote, which I assume she otherwise would have gotten because she was wearing sneakers on television?
Yes, and I know how ridiculous that sounds.
You think so?
That's just how strongly yes.
Would you have voted for her if she was wearing regular shoes?
Actually, no, I will say.
Oh, well, that's...
Because I wanted...
Okay.
Rebecca, I'm going to tell you something.
Rebecca.
Huh? We did this thing, the band in Boston that Diana DiZoglio was at.
She was fabulous.
She had like 3 or 4 inch heels on, and
she
she
sang
was
a Whitney
dancing
Houston song.
up a storm.
She
and
would have
sang
voted
a Whitney
for her
Houston
that
song.
night.
So I can't imagine why she'd go on TV in sneakers when she's got very nice legs and look wonderful in her shoes.
What is with you, really nice legs? Why is that relevant? She's the auditor.
She's the auditor.
Not a pole
I was
dancer.
saying she's a very attractive woman in high heels.
By the way, when she walked into the debate with Chris Dempsey in the primary into my studio,
there's an AI picture of you in your
at Greater
sneakers,
Boston,
Jim.
in the Oval Office. Jamie is like, has a disease. He really...
Yeah, but those don't really do
seriously
justice
wrong.
to sneakers because Jim does not usually wear black sneakers. He wears colored sneakers.
I have black sneakers
They're like
today.
Pink and yellow and orange.
In
They're
all seriousness,
spots. They
see
are
my
the most
right hand
ridiculous
raised?
looking
I
sneakers.
get huge numbers of compliments.
No, Jim, people are just trying to be nice because they can't stop looking
Feel
at your
bad for me?
sneakers and they can't understand why you're wearing sneakers.
Let's go to Barbara Newton. Who did you not vote for because they were wearing sneakers, Barbara?
Oh, hi, Jim and Marjorie.
Hi.
I would always vote for somebody who wears sneakers.
Yeah.
Because I wear sneakers.
Oh.
And I have to say, I love your program. I think the two of you are terrific.
We are.
But I'm not with you on this one, Marjorie, because I'm a very active person.
Yeah.
I'm a professor. I teach.
Oh.
I love to walk, but I've also had knee and ankle injuries, and I can't wear a high-heel shoe. And I find that for walking, for stability, for safety, sneakers are fantastic.
Well,
Barbara,
Barbara,
I'm going to
nobody's
respond to
saying
this. Oh,
you can't wear sneakers if you have leg injuries.
Barbara, Marjorie is making that up. Before the show, I
Yeah.
said, if someone has a knee or ankle injury, is it okay if they wear sneakers? You know what she said? No, they should suffer.
Okay.
That's what she said
He's
to me.
lying
and
yet again.
I'll rest my reputation.
But I think that's
How
what you
about
think.
Barbara?
I
How
think
about
that's
Barbara?
what you think. When you see someone wearing sneakers.
Well, how do you know if Barbara doesn't wear a sign that says I have a knee injury?
But I think that's
so you're going to criticize her because she's wearing...
I figure Bob Kraft wears sneakers because there's something wrong with his feet.
No, he thinks it's fashionable.
And I think you wear sneakers because, I don't know, you got that Morton's toe thing.
Okay, let's not get it. Barbara, even though Marjorie is very critical of you, I am supportive.
Okay.
I hope you feel better.
Barbara,
and good luck to you.
You can wear sneakers when you're injured.
No, but you
lots
missed the
of
whole
us,
point.
Lots of
Excuse
us can't
me.
wear heels.
If Barbara was here right now, you would not know she had a knee or ankle
I would
problem,
make
correct?
and
you would turn to me and say, do you believe that woman says she's a professor and she's wearing sneakers to the show? What would you say about that?
I would say,
You'd
depending on what
criticize
else
her.
she was wearing.
Yeah.
If people are in
Marjorie's
gym,
not making eye
if
contact
people
with
are
me, which
wearing
means she's
gym
cornered.
outfits, you figure they're going
It's
to the
not
gym
gym
in
outfit.
their sneakers. If people are walking,
I'm not
but
going
I
to the
think
gym.
it's unusual to wear sneakers to weddings and black tie events, Jim. And people were like appalled by your outfit the other night, and it was very sad.
Marjorie
for us,
asked
Jim.
that I be removed from Literary Lights right before we presented the honoree, Alex
That's right.
Bean.
Get him out of here. Amy in the car. Thank you for calling.
Hey, Amy, what's your deal?
Hey, I'm happy to talk to you.
You too.
Kind of, as I was hearing you guys talk, I was also kind of thinking to myself, what's going to be okay next? Wearing baseball hats to dinner? I mean, it drives me
Exactly.
crazy. But anyway,
Yeah.
I'm 52 now,
Yeah.
but growing up, my dad always said the same thing to my brother and I still live by it, and I
What'd he
think
say?
it's true. I'm not sure if it's Shakespeare or who it is, but he would quote all the time, "The clothes doth declare the man."
There you go. Okay, Amy. So what would you think
That was
about
not
a...
Shakespeare. That was Robert Kraft.
Yeah,
who
what would
said
you think
that,
about
Amy.
a very large man, that would be Jim,
Jim.
in a black tie event with pink, yellow, and orange polka
What would your
dot
father
sneakers?
think, Amy?
Appalled.
He wouldn't think much of that.
He wouldn't.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
To each his own. Amy, thank you for sharing your father's wisdom with us. We appreciate it.
Now, I mean, some people are saying that somebody texted and said if it wasn't for his wife, he'd be wearing Crocs all the time. And but somebody else says, Lord help us if all the folks began wearing Crocs to work or to weddings. Oh no. Mimi in Harwich says Kevin McCarthy should be wearing clown shoes. She's a comedian.
That's a good one.
Yes. And somebody else says these hybrids that they were wearing in the Oval Office are acceptable. Regular sneakers are not, especially basketball sneakers. And here's Fall from Fort Lauderdale saying the only shoes Mitch McConnell should be in is orthopedic shoes.
What's the point of that?
Did he have an injury?
Oh, he did fall. Did
Yeah.
he fall and get a concussion?
Yeah.
Well, that's unkind.
Yeah.
That's really a little unkind, don't you think?
GOP leaders are wearing quote unquote woke sneakers. Does Meatball Ron DeSantis know about this?
That's not nice either.
It's not nice.
Hakeem Jeffries is a liberal Democrat from New York. He was wearing the hybrid sneakers, Marjorie. How come you're leaving him out?
Because he looks terrible in them too.
You don't have to hold it up.
He's
We're
not
on the
only got
radio.
hybrid sneakers, but he's got striped socks.
Yeah.
I think in the Oval Office you want to have.
Hey, we should also
nice
say he's
shoes
wearing
on.
gym shorts to the Oval Office and a tank top. 877-301-8970. Max, you're in Rhode Island. What's your take?
Yeah, hi. I'm on Block Island, Rhode Island, about to get on the ferry to go to Wakefield, Rhode Island for a funeral
Oh, I'm
service.
sorry.
And you know me as Max at Newport. I've been on with you before.
Yes,
Oh,
you have.
good. Well,
We
thank you for
remember.
calling back.
The question came up to me, of course, what footwear to wear this.
Good point.
I put big boy pants on, as
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, of course.
and I put on a nice new boot.
Mm-hmm.
I was between that and either sneakers or sandals. I said, no, this is out of respect for the friend who passed away.
Yeah, I think
It's
sandals for a funeral is a bit much, Max. I would agree with you on
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So what did you
yeah,
settle?
yeah,
Oh, you
but
settled
anyway.
on boots.
Yeah, I settled on boots.
Oh.
And,
Max?
by boots, I'm not talking about cowboy boots.
Sure.
Actually, they're a brand new pair of hiking boots.
Oh, that's very nice.
But by the way, I've invited you people to lunch at the Castle Hill Inn.
You have.
Never took me up on
We're
it.
going to take you up on
Oh,
it.
Castle Hill is beautiful,
gonna
Max.
happen,
That's a
just
very
not
lovely
yet.
invitation. But
We
thank you
appreciate
very
the
much.
not but. We will take you up on it, just not right now. Max,
Okay.
sorry about your friend or whoever it is. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Jim and Marjorie, I'm required to wear sneakers to work. I'd love for everyone to wear sneakers to work, but that said, I work at the place right down the street from GBH. Ron from New Balance.
Oh,
so there we go.
that's acceptable.
We have both New Balance stores right near us, don't we?
We do, yes, we do.
And this is a Where Have You Been? To you and me, Jim. The fashion runway has been showing sneakers with very dressy outfits for years.
Years.
It's just a matter of time that trickles down to the rest of us, but I hate it.
By the way, the trickle down is exactly right. Like the jeans thing. Do you remember I wore jeans, I think with Governor Patrick or Governor Baker one time, and you were appalled until a couple years later you were wearing jeans when the governor was in the studio. So
Not till after the pandemic, I didn't.
Well, so what?
I don't know,
what's the
because
difference?
everybody kind of started dressing down after the pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, people are emailing about or texting about how they show up at work in practically pajamas.
Yeah.
You know, very casual shows, gym shows, workout clothes. I mean, before the pandemic, I don't think, I didn't do it before the pandemic.
Okay.
But you do notice, I mean, what does Michelle Wu wear when she comes in
What
here?
does she wear?
She wears a dress. She wears a beautiful, she has very
She's
nice
the mayor.
dresses.
You know she's the
well,
mayor.
she's the mayor.
Yeah.
So, why does she have to
Am I
get
the
dressed
mayor?
up?
I don't think I'm
Should
the mayor.
she be in jeans?
I don't know if she should be in jeans.
I mean, Charlie Baker always had a jacket and tie on when he came to our show, didn't he?
So
he wasn't in jeans.
what's your point exactly?
Well, I'm saying, why are we wearing jeans? We're probably making a big mistake here, Jim.
Okay, fine. That's
Let's
a good
go
argument,
to
I
Frank
think.
in the car. Hi, Frank.
Frank in the car. Do you understand what she just said or what?
Hi there. I understand it all. I love
do?
the conversation. I was the first in the first group at Fidelity Investments to stop wearing ties.
Wow, how'd that go over?
That got us a lot of resentment and then imitation.
Yeah, ties
So you
I
started
get.
a trend, Frank, is what you're saying. Is that correct?
We started a trend. That's right. And then meanwhile, I was at a funeral on Saturday where I was the only person wearing a sport jacket.
There you go.
As opposed to a suit, you mean?
No, as opposed to T-shirts and
at a funeral
and pullovers. At a funeral.
Yeah, I've seen the dress code go down at funerals. I don't know what to make of that.
Frank, thank you for your addition to the
Okay,
conversation.
here's a good question.
By the way, an anonymous texter says, just be glad Jim isn't wearing whale pants. And the reason, for those who don't recall,
Okay.
the libelous column that Marjorie wrote
Yeah.
about me in 1990,
That's right.
when she hadn't even met me,
I
she
had met you
suggested that I wore
several times.
whale pants and drove a Volvo
Yeah.
station wagon.
Which you did.
No, I didn't buy one for 2 years.
I wrote the column, and a month later, hit a Volvo station
Well,
wagon.
actually, I did a couple of months later.
Exactly. Listen to this from
What?
Stan from
Show's over.
Fairhaven. What's your opinion of Senator Fetterman? Is that his name, Fetterman? John Fetterman.
I have to say,
wearing a
even-
white hoodie and shorts while addressing the press, accompanied by
Did you
several of
see
his
this?
Senate colleagues while wearing suits and ties.
I have to say, I thought it
I
was...
didn't like it.
I didn't like
I
it.
mean, neither did I. Well, okay, so why is that wrong and sneakers are okay?
Because it's not me. That's why it's... So
Okay,
show's
Jim,
over.
You're an honest man.
I am
We
an
are
honest
done.
man.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
For
much.
listening to Boston Public Radio today. Thank you to the people that came down here at the Boston Public Library.
Michelle,
Really
who was the next
appreciate it.
caller we didn't get to, was going to say she's worn 2 ball gowns with sneakers. You going to trash her
Well,
too?
she's a brave woman. She's
Michelle,
a brave
we
woman.
love you.
But I
Thank
get
you.
why women do that because high heels are very uncomfortable.
Okay, fine.
You can wear low heels.
Okay, fine.
That's my strategy.
Good.
Low heels.
Okay.
Anyway, we are done. I'm not going to mention this.
What if it turns out Diana DeZoglio had lost the race because she'd worn sneakers to the debate on my show? Would that have been horrible?
Well, she
know
won the
either.
race,
She
so
won the
it
race.
doesn't
That's a
matter.
good point.
Keep up with us 24/7 way of our podcast, which is called, coincidentally, Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow, we'll talk with the folks from the Anti-Defamation League about their new report on the rise of extremism right here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We'll also talk with our Harvard national security expert, Juliette Kayyem. Food writer Corby Cummer will be with us as well. And a panel of Sudanese Americans on this horrible conflict in Sudan. Plus, entrepreneur Paul English and the Chancellor of UMass Boston on their new AI research
$5 million
institute.
again.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are very concerned about artificial
they are,
intelligence.
including
And
us.
we're going to find out what they're doing over there at UMass Boston. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. We want to thank the BPL team, Evelyn Brito, Angelica Marrero, and Steve Baracci.
You want to thank the people who came?
I did.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
thank you again.
We
Thank you
appreciate
again.
it.
I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Thank you so much for tuning in.